Chapter 1912. Ningyu, we have to leave as soon as possible. The Red Devil's expression was solemn as he sent a soul transmission to Ningyu. In another half an hour, the planar barrier will completely loosen. At that time, all the martial artists that descend from the higher planes will have their cultivation restored to near their peak. Swoosh. Hearing the human demon's words, Ningyu opened his eyes. Ningyu was well aware of the consequences of loosening the planar barrier, even without the human demon's reminder. He could use the Heaven Fate Stone to raise his cultivation to the late human immortal stage. After lowering his cultivation to the late human immortal stage, Ningyu was able to fight evenly with a peak human immortal stage expert. Even so, Ningyu didn't dare to let his guard down. First of all, he had already used the Heavenly Fortune Stone twice in a row, and Bai Chang had used it once before. Therefore, he could not use the Heavenly Fortune Stone anymore. He was praying that Hong Mo could find the Heaven Fate Stone after devouring Dao Master Ku Yu's primordial spirit. However, Dao Master Ku Yu's Heaven Fate Stone had been used twice, so he could only use it once. Moreover, even if he used the Heaven Fate Stone to raise his cultivation to the late human immortal stage, he still wouldn't be able to deal with an Earth Immortal stage cultivator. Ningyu knew what the human demon was worried about. Mo Qianye was the vice-sect leader of the Transformation God sect in the higher plane, and his cultivation was at the mid-Earth Immortal stage. If the plane barrier loosened, Mo Qianye could at least recover to the early Earth Immortal stage. To be honest, Ningyu had no chance of winning against an early Earth Immortal stage Mo Qianye. Senior human demon, you're also from a higher plane. Can't you deal with Mo Qianye? Ningyu asked. Mo Qianye wasn't the only one from a higher plane. The human demon was also from a higher plane. Moreover, Ningyu knew that the human demon's cultivation was definitely higher than Mo Qianye's. After the plane barrier loosens, I should be able to recover to the mid-Earth Immortal stage in an instant. But I can't help you, because as soon as the bit wall loosens, my enemies from the higher planes will descend and kill me, the human demon said in a deep voice. I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of you when the time comes. So, the most important thing now is to leave Four Corner City as soon as possible, and then we'll split up. Ningyu's expression became extremely solemn. He remembered very clearly that the last time he was separated from the human devil was at the Moling mountain range. At that time, the human devil wanted to go to the Pill Emperor city to search for something important, so he chose to separate from Ningyu. Now that they had to separate, there was no need to think about it to know that the human demon was in great danger. Is there no other way? Ningyu took a deep breath and asked. There is a way. The human demon thought for a moment, then said, activate the teleportation formation below Four Corner City in half an hour. We'll use it to head to the Myriad Demon's Ridge. If I'm not mistaken, the experts from the high-level existential planes have already locked onto my position. As soon as the dimensional barrier loosens, they will send people to Four Corner City to deal with me. When the time comes, we'll activate the teleportation formation and leave. We'll be able to avoid them easily. Four Corner City was very far from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. Although the people from the high-level existential planes had a way to lock onto the human devil, it would consume a lot of energy each time. As long as the teleportation formation was activated, the human devil would have a way to avoid being locked onto by those people. Then what are we waiting for? Think of a way to activate the teleportation formation. Ningyu made a prompt decision and decided to activate the formation. There were several things he needed to prepare in order to activate the teleportation formation below Four Corner City. First, evacuate the crowd. Second, activate the altars around the city. Third, when the city collapsed and the underground teleportation formation appeared, he would pour a huge amount of energy into it. Ninglu, now that Mo Qianye is trapped in a small formation, do you have the confidence to subdue Wu Wentian? Ningyu turned and sent a spiritual message to Ninglu. 1 or 2 people wouldn't be able to accomplish these 3 tasks at the same time. Ningyu's idea was to let Ninglu control Wu Wentian, then have the latter and a few other martial artists activate the altars around Four Corner City. As for Ninglu and Wu Potion's group, they would be responsible for evacuating the crowd. The final task of activating the teleportation formation would require everyone to work together. I'm 100% sure. With that, Ninglu's figure flashed and rushed toward Wu Wentian. Ninglu had heard the conversation between Ningyu and the human devil. Controlling Wu Wentian and finding a way to activate the teleportation formation were the most important things. Not good. Wu Wentian thought that Ninglu wouldn't dare to attack him after relying on Mo Chenye. Unexpectedly, he didn't have long to relax before he found Ninglu rushing toward him. Wu Wentian felt that he couldn't deal with Ninglu, so he hurriedly asked Mo Chenye for help. Trash, you and him are both peak Saint Realm cultivators. If you can't even deal with him, you can go die. Mo Chenye didn't decide to help Wu Wentian. On the contrary, he said fiercely, I'll give you half an hour. If you can't control Ninglu in half an hour, I'll make my move. Mo Chenye's plan was very good. The planar barrier would loosen in half an hour. Once it did, his cultivation would return to the early Earth immortal level. At that time, he wouldn't need to worry about Ninglu and the others. After all, they were immortal spirit realm natives. Even if the planar barrier loosened, their strength wouldn't increase too much. Damn it. Wu Wentian cursed inwardly when he saw that Mo Chenye wasn't going to help him. Wu Wentian had relied on Mo Chenye so that Mo Chenye could protect him. Now that Mo Chenye wasn't willing to help Ninglu, Wu Wentian actually wanted to turn to Ninglu. Bang! However, the thought of relying on Ninglu had just appeared in Wu Wentian's mind when Ninglu's fist arrived in front of him. Helpless, Wu Wentian could only clench his right fist and punch. The two fists collided, and a crisp sound rang out. After the blow, Ninglu stood in place and didn't retreat an inch. On the other hand, Wu Wentian retreated rapidly, and only stopped after retreating more than 10 meters. This move was enough to determine who was superior. Again, Ninglu's task was to control Wu Wentian. After the first move, he immediately dashed out, wanting to use the second move. However, before Ninglu could reach Wu Wentian hastily shouted, "Stop, stop. I surrender." Swoosh. Hearing that Wu Wentian had surrendered, Ninglu stopped in midair with a swoosh. "Stop fighting, I've decided to forsake darkness for light." Wu Wentian patted his chest and said righteously, "I have a grudge against Mo Chenye. The reason why I relied on him just now was to get close to him and find his weakness. Now that I've found his weakness, I naturally want to deal with him with you." Wu Wentian spoke with righteousness. Those who didn't know Wu Wentian would definitely be deceived. "It's not impossible to rely on me." How could Ninglu be deceived by Wu Wentian? He said in a low voice, "Open your mind, let me leave a wisp of soul force in your mind." Okay. Wu Wentian didn't even think. He closed his eyes and opened his mind. Chapter 1913. Swoosh. Seeing Wu Wentian's actions, the surrounding cultivators widened their eyes, their faces filled with confusion. They knew that Wu Wentian was a fence-sitter, but they didn't expect him to be so spineless. Grass on the fence. If the wind is strong, it will fall with the wind there. However, Wu Wentian had completely opened up his mind and allowed Ninglu to do whatever he wanted. It could be said that as long as Ninglu left some soul force in Wu Wentian's mind, Wu Wentian's life would be completely under Ninglu's control. Does Wu Wentian have some trump card? The surrounding martialists weren't the only ones who had this thought. Even Ninglu had the same thought. After all, the battle prowess he had displayed wasn't much stronger than Wu Wentian's. Wu Wentian might have a 10% chance of winning if they fought head-on. Under such circumstances, Wu Wentian opening up his mind for him to control would naturally confuse him. However, despite his confusion, Ninglu didn't stop moving. His figure moved again and again, and in a split second, a cold glint shot out from his head. Swoosh. In everyone's opinion, the cold glint that shot out from Ninglu's head was his soul force. Hee. Wu Wentian didn't show any reaction on the surface when he saw Ninglu splitting a wisp of soul force flying towards him. However, he was laughing sinisterly in his heart. Wu Wentian wasn't a fool. Although he knew that he had a 10% chance of winning if he fought head-on, he wouldn't take the risk. He knew a type of soul art that could use the opponent's soul force to control the opponent's body. Strictly speaking, the soul art that Wu Wentian knew had the same effect as the soul attraction technique that Ningyu knew. However, the soul art that Wu Wentian knew was more powerful. Once executed, unless the opponent's strength far exceeded his, there was no way to break it. The reason why Wu Wentian had agreed to open up his mind and let Ninglu's soul force control him was so that he could control Ninglu. Swoosh! The cold glint that shot out from Ninglu's head entered Wu Wentian's body in an instant. Counterattack! Wu Wentian immediately unleashed a soul art when he sensed the cold glint entering his body. Fart! Wu Wentian had just unleashed his soul technique when Ninglu spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura plummeted. What? Wu Wentian does indeed have a trump card. I knew it. When Wu Wentian was in the higher planes, he was at the peak of human immortal stage. He was infinitely close to becoming an earthly immortal. How could he not have any trump cards? Ninglu is still not smart enough. Wrong, it's not that Ninglu isn't smart, it's that Wu Wentian is too cunning. Wu Wentian enjoyed listening to the discussions of the crowd. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He turned to Ningyu and the others and said, "You guys are still too inexperienced to fight me. Wu Wentian, aren't you afraid of retribution for your actions?" Ningyu sat cross-legged beside the Red Fiend and said solemnly, "As long as you let go of your mind now, I can let bygones be bygones." Ha ha ha. Upon hearing Ningyu's words, Wu Wentian threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Then, he said coldly, "You want me to relax my mind? You've lost your mind." Humph. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Ningyu snorted coldly. Then, he slammed his hands on the ground and his body flew into the air. Swoosh. Ningyu's body drew a trace in midair and charged towards Wu Wentian at a terrifying speed. "Stop. Otherwise, I'll kill Ninglu." Looking at Ningyu who was flying towards him continuously, the corners of Wu Wentian's mouth curled up into an arc. The current Wu Wentian did not care about Ningyu in the slightest. In his opinion, Ningyu would not dare to really make a move against him. Because Ninglu's life was in his hand. As long as he activated his soul art and activated Ninglu's soul force in his body, Ningyu would definitely hold back for fear of harming the innocent. "As you wish." Ningyu suddenly stopped in midair. "Come here. Relax your mind and let me control you." Wu Wentian extended his right hand and pointed at Ningyu. "I want to let you experience what it feels like to be controlled by someone else." "No problem." Ningyu shrugged as though everything had nothing to do with him. Moving his feet, Ningyu walked towards Wu Wentian. Could it be a trap? Wu Wentian felt that something was amiss when he saw that Ningyu did not resist at all. That was how he promised Ninglu back then. In the end, he used his soul art to control Ninglu at the last moment. Judging from Ningyu's current reaction, he couldn't be thinking of using his soul art to control him, right? The more he thought about it, the more Wu Wentian felt that it was possible. His expression turned cold as he said in a deep voice, "Stay where you are and let that martial artist come over." The person that Wu Wentian pointed at was not the human fiend, but the Red Fiend. That was because Wu Wentian knew that the relationship between the Red Fiend and Ningyu was definitely better than that of the human fiend. After all, ever since he appeared, Ningyu had been guarding the Red Fiend. Moreover, the Red Fiend's aura was also growing steadily. Although Wu Wentian was confident that he could still suppress the Red Fiend easily even if he advanced to the perfected Sage Realm, it was always better to be in less danger. "All right." Ningyu thought about it, then said, "Wait a moment, I'll go over and let the Red Fiend come over." After saying that, Ningyu walked towards the Red Fiend step by step. "Stop right there. I mean you stay where you are and let him walk over by himself." Seeing that Ningyu was moving, Wu Wentian shouted. However, no matter how Wu Wentian shouted, Ningyu acted as if he didn't hear it and continued walking on his own. "If you dare to take another step forward, I'll kill Ninglu." In desperation, Wu Wentian could only use Ninglu as a bargaining chip to threaten Ningyu. As expected, Ningyu stopped again. However, this time, Ningyu just turned his head and said faintly, "If you had threatened me like that just now, it might have been useful. But now, I'm sorry, it's too late." After saying that, Ningyu didn't care about Wu Wentian's reaction. Instead, He walked straight to the Red Fiend's side and sat down cross-legged. There were still about 10 minutes before the Red Fiend successfully devoured the primordial spirit of Venerable Ku Yu. According to Ning Lu, he had already completed his task of delaying. In the next 10 minutes, he had to devote himself to recovering and protecting the Red Fiend. I'm going to kill Ning Lu. Wu Wentian was furious. He clenched his fists and immediately used the soul technique, wanting to give Ning Lu a taste of pain. Fart. However, before he could use the soul technique, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His entire body was no longer under his control. How is this possible? The sudden change caused Wu Wentian's expression to change drastically as he exclaimed, "Nothing is impossible." Chapter 1914. It's not your soul force. Wu Wentian's eyes widened in disbelief. The reason why Wu Wentian had such an expression was because when Ning Lu's soul power had entered his body, he had checked it carefully. After confirming that it was Ning Lu's soul power that had entered his body, Wu Wentian used a soul technique. Moreover, what made Wu Wentian puzzled was that when he used the soul art, Ning Lu was indeed greatly affected. Logically speaking, unless Ning Lu's cultivation was much higher than his, it was absolutely impossible for him to break his soul technique. I gave you a chance, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Ning Lu's figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Wu Wentian. He stretched out his right hand and suddenly slapped Wu Wentian's head. Poochie. This palm of Ning Lu's was extremely heavy, directly causing Wu Wentian to spit out a large mouthful of dark red blood. Don't kill me. I'm willing to open my mind and let you control me. Seeing that Ning Lu was about to kill him, Wu Wentian revealed his fence-sitter nature again. He hurriedly said, "Also, I can help you control these people and make them do your bidding." As he spoke, Wu Wentian pointed at the surrounding martial artists. Wu Wentian's action caused Ning Lu to stop attacking. He frowned and said, "I'll give you 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, I hope you can control all of them." "No problem, leave it to me." Wu Wentian patted his chest and immediately rushed out. He began to control the surrounding warriors. Ning Lu wouldn't allow Wu Wentian to do as he pleased. What he wanted was for the people at the scene to be safe and sound. In other words, they still had super strong combat strength. After all, the altars around Four Corner City still needed these people to activate. If Wu Wentian severely injured them, the consequences would be unimaginable. The facts proved that Ning Lu's worries were unnecessary. For a fence-sitter like Wu Wentian, the reason why he would fall with the wind was because there was no powerful force holding him in place. Now that Ning Lu had utilized a secret technique to control Wu Wentian, Wu Wentian's life was in Ning Lu's hands. Under such circumstances, in order to survive, Wu Wentian naturally wouldn't play any tricks. Wu Wentian was very efficient. From the moment he made his move to the moment he subdued the surrounding martial artists, a total of 2.5 minutes had passed. Very good. Now, all of you are responsible for activating the altars around Four Corner City. After activating the altars, all of you are to return here. Ning Lu continued to instruct. Ning Lu was very satisfied with Wu Wentian spending 2 minutes to control everyone. Even for him, controlling so many people in 2.5 minutes was still quite difficult. Voila! Upon hearing Ning Lu's instructions, Wu Wentian leaped up and flashed towards the altar in the west. Behind Wu Wentian, the group split into 3 groups and charged in 3 different directions. Ha ha ha! I advise you to stop your futile resistance. Seeing that Wu Wentian and the others were going to activate the altars, Mo Chenye, who was trapped in the small formation, threw his head back and laughed. Even if they were lucky enough to activate 4 altars, it's impossible to activate the teleportation formation without enough energy. Noisy. Ning Lu's eyes turned cold. A cold glint shot out from his eyes and bombarded the small formation Mo Chenye was in. Kai Kai. Although Ning Lu's cold glint could not hurt Mo Chenye in the small formation, it could slow down the speed at which he broke the formation. I can sense that in another 15 minutes, after 15 minutes, the restriction of the plane barrier on the high-level martial artists will hit rock bottom. While Ning Lu and Wu Wentian were entangled, the human devil had been paying attention to the changes in the celestial spirit realm's plane barrier. Originally, It would take 30 minutes for the plane barrier to completely loosen. But for some reason, the power of the high-level martial artists bombarding the plane barrier suddenly increased by a lot. The sudden increase in energy directly reduced the time needed for the plane barrier to loosen from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. Of the 20 minutes, 5 minutes had already been wasted. There were only 15 minutes left. In 15 minutes, they needed to activate the altars, evacuate the people in Four Corner City, and open the teleportation formation. The difficulty was extremely high. Earlier, when Ning Lu and Wu Wentian were fighting, he had already instructed Wu Potian and the others to evacuate the people in Four Corner City. Not surprisingly, the people in Four Corner City were most likely already gone. After all, in the face of survival, everything else could be put aside for the time being. I wonder when the Red Devil will complete his advancement. Ning Lu took a deep breath and looked at the Red Devil. Boom. However, before Ning Lu could finish the word advancement, a terrifying aura suddenly rushed out of the Red Devil's body and shot into the sky. My Red Devil. Feeling the aura rushing out of the Red Devil's body, Ning Lu could not help but curse even though he was prepared. In terms of aura alone, the aura displayed by the Red Devil was no weaker than his. Ning Lu knew that the Red Devil was the sword spirit of the Red Devil sword. The Red Devil sword was extremely mysterious and could devour flying swords to advance. Now that the Red Devil sword had advanced to the Sage stage, as the sword spirit of the Red Devil sword, its strength must not be underestimated. Whoosh! The aura on the Red Devil's body disappeared in a flash and quickly returned to normal. Seeing the Red Devil's current state, Ning Yu's face lit up. Sage perfected stage. After devouring the two halves of perfected withered domain's primordial spirit, the Red Devil had indeed advanced from the peak of the Sage stage to the Sage perfected stage. However, what surprised Ning Yu the most was not that the Red Devil had advanced to the Sage perfected stage, but that the Red Devil sword had advanced a little again. Perfected withered domain also had a sacred sword. The Red Devil devoured perfected withered domain's primordial spirit, while the Red Devil sword devoured perfected withered domain's sacred sword. The two of them devoured each other's primordial spirit without interfering with each other. If the Red Devil sword was considered a low-grade Sage stage before, then the current Red Devil sword had advanced to a true mid-grade Sage stage. Swoosh! In the next moment, the Red Devil sword left the Red Devil sword and arrived in front of Ning Yu. Ning Yu stretched out his right hand and suddenly grabbed the Red Devil sword. Boom! As soon as he held the Red Devil sword, Ning Yu felt a terrifying energy sweep through his body. At this moment, Ning Yu only felt one thing. When he used the Red Devil sword, he could even fight against a mid-stage human immortal. Ning Yu's current cultivation was at the peak of the Sage stage. Without the Red Devil sword, he could fight against an early-stage human immortal if he used all his other trump cards. However, once he used the Red Devil sword, his strength would increase exponentially and reach the mid-stage human immortal realm. Mo Qianye, do you really think that no one can break this small formation? Ning Yu held the mid-grade Sage stage Red Devil sword and walked toward Mo Qianye step by step. Chapter 1915. Destroying all techniques with a single strike. I'm afraid you've lost your mind. Hearing Ning Yu's words, Mo Qianye's lips curled into an arc. He said in a cold voice, although that trash, Dao Master Ku Yu, died in battle, the formation he left behind can easily withstand a strike from a mid-human immortal. You might not know this, but everyone in the Heavenly Fortune sect is proficient in alchemy, formations, and, what? Mo Qianye's mouth was wide open and his face was filled with horror before he could finish his sentence. That was because Mo Qianye saw Ning Yu swing the red demon sword high up in the air. Kai. A sword ray as thick as a person's waist separated from the Red Devil sword and charged at Mo Qianye at a terrifying speed. Moreover, the power of the sword ray far exceeded Mo Qianye's expectations. Crack! A crisp sound rang out, and Mo Qianye saw the small formation around him shatter. This is impossible! Mo Qianye exclaimed. He knew better than anyone else that perfected Master Ku Yu was very skilled in formations in the Heavenly Fortune sect. If perfected Master Ku Yu didn't die in battle, the small formation he left behind would be enough to withstand an attack from a peak human immortal. Even if perfected Master Ku Yu died in battle, The small formation he left behind would still be able to withstand an attack from a mid-stage human immortal. However, Ningyu, a warrior at the peak of the Sage realm, had managed to cut open such a terrifying defensive formation with one strike. How could Mo Qianye not be shocked? Run! However, Mo Qianye hurriedly used a secret technique to tear open the void and flee into the distance the moment the small formation was broken. The mountains will not change, and the rivers will continue to flow. We will meet again. Mo Qianye didn't forget to look back at Ningyu as he fled. Do you think you can escape? Ningyu seemed to have anticipated that Mo Qianye would try to escape. He waved the red demon sword in his hand again, and in an instant, another 3 sword rays swept out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 3 sword rays were extremely fast. Their target was Mo Qianye, who was hiding in the void. Rumble. The 3 sword beams drilled into the void together. In an instant, the void was torn apart, and countless yuan qi collapsed. Poochie. Then, a figure fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. Mo Qianye spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. At this moment, Mo Qianye's aura had fallen to the freezing point. Mo Qianye's aura was already extremely weak after being trapped in the small formation. Now, he was struck by the 3 cold beams from Ningyu, causing him to fall into an extremely weak state. You forced me to do this. Mo Qianye clenched his fists and produced a jade bottle. It could be seen that the jade bottle contained a few blue elixirs. Mo Qianye didn't care about the consequences and simply threw the bottle into his mouth. Ka. The moment the jade bottle entered his stomach, Mo Qianye chewed continuously and swallowed it before long. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Mo Qianye's aura returned to its peak state. Moreover, Mo Qianye's aura didn't stop because of this. On the contrary, it continued to rise. Kill. How could Ningyu allow Mo Qianye's aura to continue rising? When Mo Qianye's aura reached the intermediate human immortal stage, Ningyu charged out with the red demon sword in hand. For Ningyu, Mo Qianye's intermediate human immortal stage cultivation was enough. The altar has been activated. As soon as Ningyu and Mo Qianye clashed, Wu Wentian led the crowd back from the altars around Four Corner City. The crowd has been evacuated. Apart from Wu Wentian's group, Wu Potian, War Divine Crane, and the others had also arrived in this area. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As for Meng Chang'an, the Dark Emperor, and Lu Wei, they followed closely behind and landed beside Ninglu. This is a trap. The sudden change caused Mo Qianye's expression to darken to the extreme. In fact, when he was swallowing the elixirs, Ningyu had the opportunity to attack him, but he didn't. At that time, he thought that Ningyu had made a fatal mistake. Now it seemed that it was wishful thinking on his part. The altar was opened, and the crowd was evacuated. Ningyu's ambition could be seen at a glance. He said that it would be difficult to activate the teleportation array with the strength of Ningyu and the others because it required a huge amount of energy. He didn't expect that Ningyu would use what he had learned and use him as a sacrifice to activate the teleportation array. You want to scheme against me? Let's see if you have the ability. After figuring out the reason, Mo Qianye took a deep breath, and the yuan qi in his body surged. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched at Ningyu's head. Under normal circumstances, Ningyu would definitely not be Mo Qianye's match. After all, Mo Qianye came from a higher plane and had a cultivation of intermediate human immortal stage. However, Ningyu had the red demon sword, a sage mid-grade red demon sword. One had to know that the sacred swords used by perfected withered domain and perfected Haining were only low-grade sage swords. The power of a sage low-grade flying sword was already so terrifying. One could imagine how powerful a sage mid-grade flying sword would be. Although Ningyu couldn't kill Mo Qianye with the red demon sword, it wasn't too difficult for him to contend with Mo Qianye. Everyone, let's work harder and make the teleportation array appear as soon as possible. Human Demon knew that time was limited. Not to mention how long Ningyu could resist Mo Qianye, just the fact that the enemies from the higher planes had already noticed him was enough to make him nervous. Under such circumstances, he could only pray that the teleportation array would appear as soon as possible and then use Mo Qianye to activate it. Rumble. Under Human Demon's command, Wu Wentian, Wu Potian, War Divine Crane, and the others exerted their full strength and bombarded the ground. As they continued to bombard the ground, the city suddenly caved in. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. At this moment, a huge pillar of light suddenly shot out from the sacrificial altars around Four Corner City. 4 sacrificial altars and 4 pillars of light converged at the center of Four Corner City. Rumble. The speed at which Four Corner City was collapsing was already very fast. With the addition of the 4 pillars of light, the entire city collapsed. Shortly after, the transportation array beneath the Four Corner City was completely revealed. This, Wu Wentian and the others opened their mouths slightly when they saw the teleportation array that shot out from under Four Corner City. Was this a teleportation array? To be precise, it was a huge cauldron that shot out from under Four Corner City. It was obvious that this cauldron was an alchemy cauldron. This cauldron, looking at the cauldron that flew out from under the ground, Ningyu, who was fighting fiercely with Mo Qianye in midair, narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, its quality far exceeds my heavenly fire cauldron. If I'm not wrong, it should be a cauldron from a higher plane and ranked on the immortal ranking of cauldrons. Immortal spirit realm and demon spirit realm cauldrons from these lower planes could only be ranked on the immortal ranking of cauldrons. But the cauldrons from the higher planes could be ranked on the immortal ranking of cauldrons. Chapter 1916. This is the Five Fingers Cauldron. Ningyu wasn't the only one who was shocked to see the cauldron emerging from the ground of Square City. Mo Qianye was extremely shocked as well. Mo Qianye was a martial artist who descended from a high-level plane, so he had some understanding of the cauldron immortal ranking. There was a rumor in the high-level plane that a long time ago, the Five Fingers Immortal disappeared with the Five Fingers Cauldron. Later, someone spread the news that the Five Fingers Immortal had brought the Five Fingers Cauldron to the Immortal Spirit region in search of a great opportunity. When Mo Qianye first heard the news, he snorted disdainfully and thought that it was impossible. After all, the Five Fingers Immortal was not an Earth Immortal, but a genuine Heaven Immortal. In a high-level plane, an Earth Immortal was the overlord of a region. A Heaven Immortal, on the other hand, was the ruler of many cities and millions of races. The territory of the Transformation God sect was ruled by a Heaven Immortal. The strongest expert in the deity Transformation sect was only at the late stage of the Earth Immortal realm. There was still a long way to go before he reached the peak of the Earth Immortal realm, let alone the Celestial Immortal, who was higher than the Earth Immortal realm. The Five Fingers Cauldron is here. Could it be that the Five Fingers Immortal was killed? Mo Qianye suddenly thought of something and asked in surprise. Many people in the high-level plane knew that the Five Fingers Immortal was proud of the Five Fingers Cauldron. To the Five Fingers Immortal, the cauldron was more important than his own life. How could Mo Qianye not be surprised that the Five-Fingered Cauldron was here and the Five-Fingered Immortal was nowhere to be found? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. While Mo Qianye was pondering, several terrifying suction forces suddenly emerged from the Five Fingers Cauldron. These terrifying suction forces seemed to have eyes of their own. In an instant, they reached Wu Wentian and the others. Puff, puff, puff. In just a few seconds, the martial artists behind Wu Wentian were sucked dry. What the hell is this? As for Wu Wentian, due to his own strength and the fact that he had a trump card, he was not immediately sucked dry. However, judging from Wu Wentian's condition, it was only a matter of time before he was sucked dry. Everyone, gather together. At this time, Ningyu no longer cared about fighting Mo Qianye. He slashed open the suction force in front of him and flew toward the human devil. On the other hand, Wu Potian, Battle God Crane, and the others executed their secret arts to repel the suction and landed beside the human demon. Everyone, send out all your Yuan Qi and form a protective barrier around your body. Ningyu made a prompt decision and channeled all the essence Qi in his body out, forming a protective essence Qi barrier around his body. The human demon, Ninglu, and the others followed suit. A Yuan Qi protective barrier set up by one person might be very weak. However, if it was set up by 2 or 3 people, its power would naturally be much greater. Under the concerted efforts of Ningyu and the others, the suction force from the Five-Fingered Pill Furnace actually stopped in midair for a moment, unable to move an inch forward. "Let me in." Seeing that Ningyu's method was effective, Wu Wentian shouted on the spot. Previously, Wu Wentian was worried that Ningyu's method would not work, so he had been struggling alone. Now that he saw that Ningyu's method was effective, he naturally wanted to take refuge in it. How troublesome. Ningyu did not want to help Wu Wentian at first, but considering that Wu Wentian's strength was not weak, if the planar barrier was loosened, he would at least have the battle strength of a late-stage human immortal. Therefore, he made an exception and opened the Yuan Qi barrier to let Wu Wentian in. Thank you. After entering the Yuan Qi barrier, Wu Wentian hurriedly cupped his hands toward Ningyu and thanked him. Even now, Wu Wentian still felt a little scared. But at the same time, Wu Wentian felt a little lucky. Fortunately, he had sided with Ninglu and not Mo Qianye. Otherwise, the suction from the five-fingered pill furnace would have definitely sucked him dry. On the other side, the Yuan Qi barrier around Mo Qianye's body was already showing signs of cracking. Crack, crack, crack. Crisp sounds lingered in the ears. If this continued, it would not be long before Mo Qianye was sucked dry. Save me. After another 3 minutes, Mo Qianye had no choice but to beg Ningyu and the others for help. As long as you save me, I am willing to open my mind and let you control me. Now you want to let us control you? Ningyu looked coldly at Mo Qianye and said in an awe-inspiring tone, "If you had surrendered before, perhaps I might have considered it. But now, you can go to hell. You can't do this to me." Mo Qianye shouted, "I am an earth immortal. In another 7 minutes, the planar barrier will be loosened, and once it is loosened, I will be able to exert the battle strength of an early-stage earth immortal. At that time, I will be able to resist the terrifying suction from the five-fingered pill furnace by myself." Terrifying suction. You'd better save your strength. Obviously, Ningyu did not care about Mo Qianye's plea for mercy. People like Mo Qianye were actually more opportunistic than Wu Wentian. Mo Qianye was originally the vice-sect leader of a high-level plane, the Transformation Sect. He gave up his position and came to the Immortal Spirit region a long time ago, which showed that he was very patient. Ningyu did not want to save an ingrate. Moreover, controlling Mo Qianye was much more difficult than controlling Wu Wentian. "You can't give up on me." Mo Qianye did not want to give up. He was still shouting, "In 7 minutes, the planar barrier will be loosened, and then many experts will descend from the high-level planes. I won't hide anything. They will descend right here in Four Corner City." Seeing that Ningyu was unmoved, Mo Qianye pointed at the five-fingered pill furnace and continued. "This pill furnace is called the five-fingered pill furnace. It is the pill furnace of the five-fingered immortal. In a high-level plane, the five-fingered immortal was a terrifying expert who ruled over a territory. If I'm not mistaken, among the experts that descend from the high-level planes this time, there must be a disciple of the five-fingered immortal. The five-fingered immortal has a total of 5 disciples. The lowest cultivation level is at the mid-stage of the Earth Immortal, and the highest is at the peak of the Earth Immortal. There are even rumors that the cultivation of the five-fingered immortal's eldest disciple is infinitely close to the Heaven Immortal level." Mo Qianye was like a beeping machine. Even though Ningyu did not answer him, he still kept talking. This was because Mo Qianye knew very well that if Ningyu did not help him, he would die without a doubt. Even if he had some trump cards, it would be of no use. The trump cards he had were aimed at the origin energy, not the terrifying suction force. Moreover, the five-fingered immortal was a Heaven Immortal expert. How could the power of the pill furnace he used be weak? "Do you really want us to save you?" Mo Qianye continued to blabber for another 3 minutes. When he was about to collapse, Ningyu finally asked. Upon hearing Ningyu's words, Mo Qianye felt as if he had heard the sound of nature. He hurriedly said, "Yes, as long as you are willing to save me, I can open my mind and let you control me." Chapter 1917. Wu Wentian's expression was unsightly. He very much wanted to taunt Mo Qianye, but he was afraid that Ningyu would really help Mo Qianye. Therefore, he could only keep his face ashen. "Open your mind and let me control you." Ningyu thought for a moment, then said, "I must first control you, then I will let you in." "Okay." Mo Qianye replied almost without hesitation. With that, Mo Chenye immediately opened his mind, leaving only a bit of yuan qi to bitterly resist the terrifying suction from the cauldron. Crack 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 crack. After Mo Chenye opened his mind, the terrifying suction from the cauldron instantly gained the upper hand. In this kind of situation, every second of delay would greatly threaten Mo Chenye's life. Ninglu, senior human demon. Ningyu wasn't stupid enough to release his soul force to control Mo Chenye. He asked Ninglu and human demon spiritually, "If the three of us work together, how confident are we in controlling Mo Chenye?" "Absolutely impossible." Ninglu and human demon answered at the same time. Mo Chenye was a wily old fox, far more so than Wu Wentian. The same method could fool Wu Wentian, but it wouldn't work on Mo Chenye. "I understand." Hearing Ninglu and human demon's words, Ningyu nodded lightly. Then, a wisp of soul force swept out of his body and flew straight toward Mo Chenye. "Mo Chenye, I hope you won't play any tricks." After the soul force flew out, Ningyu stared at Mo Chenye and said in a low voice, "Since I dared to send my soul force into your body, I'm confident I can subdue you. I definitely won't play any tricks." Mo Chenye hurriedly expressed his loyalty. Crack crack. Just as Mo Chenye was expressing his loyalty, the yuan qi barrier around his body emitted another crisp sound. At this rate, it would only take 10 seconds at most for Mo Chenye's yuan qi barrier to be broken. At that time, if Mo Chenye couldn't find a place of refuge, he would surely be in grave danger. Mo Chenye seemed to have given up resisting. Ningyu's soul power didn't encounter any obstruction and smoothly entered Mo Chenye's body. "Is there really no problem?" Ningyu controlled his soul power to search Mo Chenye's body for a while, but didn't find anything wrong. He was a little puzzled. However, Ningyu still chose to believe in Ninglu and human demon. He waved his hand at Mo Chenye and said, "Come here quickly. I'll break the energy barrier as soon as you come to my side." "All right." Mo Chenye responded, then his figure flashed and charged straight at Ningyu. Catcher. Just as Mo Chenye rushed out, the yuan qi barrier around him suddenly shattered. A terrifying suction force followed Mo Chenye like a shadow. He couldn't get rid of it no matter how hard he tried. Quickly open the yuan qi protective barrier. In just 3 seconds, Mo Chenye arrived in front of Ningyu and the others and shouted at the same time. Mo Chenye was very anxious. He could only hold on for 10 seconds, and 3 seconds had already passed. If he couldn't enter the yuan qi protective barrier within 7 seconds, he would have to use a big move in advance. "As you wish." Ningyu first signaled the people around him with his eyes, took a few steps back, and then opened the yuan qi protective barrier. Swoosh. The moment Ningyu opened the yuan qi protective barrier, Mo Chenye instantly rushed in. Phew. As soon as he rushed in, Mo Chenye let out a long sigh of relief, his brows revealing an excited expression. Ha ha ha. Mo Chenye was so excited that he threw his head back and laughed. After laughing, Mo Chenye narrowed his eyes and stared at Ningyu. "Thank you for your yuan qi protective barrier. Now let me control it." The next moment, Mo Chenye flicked his sleeve and a black bead suddenly flew out. Kai Kai. An extremely terrifying devouring power suddenly erupted from the black bead. Relatively speaking, although the devouring power within the black bead was slightly weaker than the suction from the 5-fingered pill cauldron, it wasn't much weaker. At the very least, under the devouring power of the black bead, the surrounding yuan qi rushed toward him with it as the center. Attack. Ningyu wouldn't choose to sit still and wait for death. He signaled Ninglu and human demon with his eyes, then immediately grasped the red demon sword and was the first to rush forward. Swish. Swish. Ninglu and human demon followed closely behind. Their target wasn't Mo Chenye, but the black bead. Ningyu clearly knew that he couldn't control Mo Chenye, but he still insisted that Mo Chenye enter the yuan qi protective barrier in order to seize Mo Chenye's trump card. After all, Mo Chenye came from a higher plane, and it was impossible that he didn't have any trump cards. As expected, Ningyu's gamble was correct. The black bead that Mo Chenye took out had a very strong devouring power, and Ningyu faintly sensed a familiar aura from it. Power of origin. That's right, the black bead definitely contained power of origin. "You want to seize my origin bead?" Mo Chenye didn't take Ning Yu and human demon's charge to heart at all. The corner of his mouth even curled up, and he pointed at the five-fingered pill cauldron. You'd better pray for yourselves. You're the one who should pray for yourselves. Ning Yu's expression was solemn as he suddenly slashed with the red demon sword. Heaven imprisoning fist. Dark gold branch. Ning Lu and human demon both used their trump cards. Under the three terrifying attacks, the black bead actually shook a little. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Mo Chenye snorted coldly, then said, I'll move your Yuan Qi protective barrier to my side and expose you to the five-fingered pill cauldron. Fart. However, Mo Chenye had only spoken halfway when he felt a sweetness in his throat, and dark red blood sprayed out. How is this possible? Mo Chenye's expression changed drastically. He never would have thought that Ning Yu would move the Yuan Qi protective barrier one step ahead of him. In other words, he was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, replacing Ning Yu's group to block the cauldron's attack. Block it for me. In the face of extreme danger, Mo Chenye could only take out a pill from his chest pocket and toss it into his mouth. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, Mo Chenye's aura instantly recovered to its peak state. Fut fut fut. However, even if Mo Chenye recovered to his peak state, it wouldn't help. Because only one of the suction forces had attacked him before, now all of them were focused on him, blocking the entire cauldron with his own strength. Obviously, Mo Chenye couldn't do it. Come here. While Mo Chenye was struggling to resist the numerous suction forces, Ning Yu's right hand grabbed at the void and instantly grabbed the black bead. Immediately afterward, Ning Yu, Ning Lu, human demon, and even the red demon and Wu Potions group all helped remove the imprints from the black bead. Fart. Chapter 1918. It really is the power of origin. After erasing the mark left by Mo Chenye in the black bead, Ning Yu immediately sent his soul power into the bead to explore. As soon as his soul power entered the black bead, Ning Yu's face lit up with joy. This was because he sensed the aura of the power of origin in the black bead. Although the power of origin in the black bead was not much and could even be described as very little, what made Ning Yu excited was not the amount of power of origin in the black bead, but the black bead itself. To be precise, the black bead had an extremely terrifying suction force on the power of origin. If there were two containers containing the power of origin, one container would be the black bead and the other a special jade bottle. There was no doubt that as long as the special jade bottle was near the black bead, the power of origin in it would be absorbed by the black bead. It really is a good treasure. Ning Yu accepted the black bead, indicating that his effort this time was not in vain. He had spent a lot of time and effort scheming against Mo Chenye. If he did not get the black bead, he would probably cry to death. Fart. As soon as Ning Yu put away the black bead, Mo Chenye, who was not far away, spat out a mouthful of blood and his aura dropped again. Ning Yu, you will die a horrible death. Mo Chenye knew that even if he begged Ning Yu again, Ning Yu would not help him. His fate was already decided. Therefore, in desperation, he could only roar at Ning Yu. I just got the news that the divine son of our transformation sect has come to the celestial spirit realm. You will die a miserable death in front of the divine son of our transformation sect. Even a deputy sect master like you is only at the intermediate stage of the earth immortal realm. I guess that divine son is at most a human immortal. I can easily kill a human immortal realm divine son. Hearing Mo Chenye's words, Ning Yu shrugged and said faintly, don't worry. When I get the power of origin in the celestial spirit realm, I will immediately go to a higher plane. The first thing I will do after going there is to eradicate the transformation sect. Ha ha ha. You're overestimating yourself. You'll never know how powerful the God-child of the God Transformation sect is. To tell you the truth, the God-child of our God Transformation sect has been sealed with a special substance for 10,000 years. When he comes out of seclusion. Fart. Mo Chenye threw his head back and laughed wildly. Just as he was about to introduce Ning Yu to the divine son of the God Transformation sect, his defense was broken through by a terrifying suction force. He spat out a mouthful of dark red blood on the spot, and his entire body immediately shriveled up. Under the terrifying suction force from the five-fingered cauldron, Mo Chenye was only able to resist for a few minutes before he was sucked dry. Catcher. Mo Chenye had just been sucked dry. Before Ningyu and the others could react, a clear voice rang in their ears. Following this, the rift exploded as a few figures appeared from it. Buzz. The target of Ningyu's group wasn't the expert that appeared out of thin air, but the human devil and Wu Wentian. Wu Wentian and the human devil were both from higher planes. Now that the plane barrier had been loosened, their strength had instantly increased. Among them, Wu Wentian had directly soared from the peak of the Sage realm to the late stage of the human immortal realm. He was only a step away from the peak of the human immortal realm. It was obvious that Wu Wentian would definitely recover to the peak of the human immortal realm once the last bit of the plane barrier was broken. Boom. Comparatively speaking, the aura emitted by the human devil was a little terrifying. Mid-stage Earth immortal realm. The aura of the human devil had now reached the mid-stage Earth immortal realm. You're really here. A loud shout soon attracted the attention of Ningyu and the others. Looking towards the source of the voice, they saw a group of 4 martial artists floating around them. Late-stage Earth immortal realm. Sensing the terrifying aura emitted by these 4 martial artists, Ningyu's heart sank to the bottom. Although the human devil had recovered to the mid-stage Earth immortal realm, the 4 people chasing after them were all at the late-stage Earth immortal realm. How could they fight such a lineup? I thought some expert would descend. Who would have thought that it's just a few small shrimps? Although he was shocked, the human devil still looked very calm on the surface. You should know very well that I can even kill a heaven immortal, let alone late-stage Earth immortal realm martial artists like you. You can indeed kill a heaven immortal, but that's in a high-level plane, and that's when you're at your peak. An old man with a hooked nose and dressed in grey robes who looked to be in his 60s or 70s said sinisterly, "This is the immortal spirit realm, and you've been severely injured in the past, causing your strength to drop a lot. The 4 of us are enough to deal with you. Why are you wasting time with him? Let's attack together." That's right. Let's get rid of the human devil first, then take the 5-finger immortal's 5-finger cauldron. Finally, we'll head to the 1000 Demons Ridge to fight for the origin energy. With the strength of the 4 of us, as long as we work together, it shouldn't be difficult for us to dominate the immortal realm. As soon as the hooked-nosed old man finished speaking, the remaining 3 martial artists started discussing among themselves. Their thoughts were strangely in sync. First kill the human devil, then take the 5-finger pill cauldron, and finally go to the 1000 Demons Ridge to steal the source energy. The idea was good, but it was a little difficult to put it into practice. The hooked-nosed old man looked at the 5-finger pill cauldron, then at the human devil and the rest. 2 of you, kill the human devil, and the other 2 take the 5-finger pill cauldron. Swoosh. Swoosh. The hooked-nosed old man did not hesitate. He immediately dashed out with a bald man beside him, rushing towards the demonic humans. Swoosh swoosh. As for the other 2 martial artists, they all rushed towards the 5-finger pill cauldron. I'll block them, you guys go first. Looking at the hooked-nosed old man and the bald man rushing towards him, the human devil took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Remember, don't think about avenging me in the future." The human devil had already made up his mind to die. He was indeed seriously injured. Although the energy seal in his body had been removed, there were still a few other injuries. Otherwise, he definitely would not have escaped to the immortal realm. When he was in the higher planes, he fought against the celestial immortals of several territories by himself. In the end, he killed 1 celestial immortal and severely injured 3 others. Then, with his body covered in wounds, he used a secret technique to escape to the celestial spirit realm. The strength of a celestial immortal was unfathomable. The human devil admitted that Ningyu was very talented, but throughout history, there had been many talented martial artists. Only 1 in 10,000 could cultivate to the celestial immortal realm, or even 1 in 100,000, or even 1 in 1,000,000. As for what cultivation level Ningyu could reach, the human devil did not know. But the human devil knew that he could not allow Ningyu to avenge him. Let them go first. The hooked-nosed old man's lips curled up, and he laughed. I think you've lost your mind. Under the encirclement of the 2 of us, none of you will leave today. All of you will die. Chapter 1919. If you dare touch a hair on them, I'll drag a few of you down with me even if I have to die. The human demon's face was extremely gloomy. He clenched his fists and fought against the suction from the cauldron. Rumble. The moment they clashed, the human demon was at a disadvantage. After all, the human demon was only a mid-earth immortal. Moreover, he was fighting against the suction from the cauldron while fighting against the old man and the others. Under such circumstances, it was already very good that the human demon wasn't killed in a short period of time. Why didn't the suction from the cauldron attack the old man and the others? Wu Potian frowned in confusion when he saw the human demon in such a difficult situation. That was because the suction force from the five-fingered cauldron was only attacking them, not the hook-nosed elder and the others. Is there a limit to the suction from the cauldron? Since Wu Potian noticed this, Ningyu naturally noticed it as well. With a thought, Ningyu shifted his gaze to the cauldron. He felt that something was amiss. At this time, the cauldron was shaking under the attacks of the other two late-earth immortal experts. Moreover, Ningyu noticed that the cauldron was only passively defending. It didn't have the slightest initiative. Poochie. While Ningyu was still puzzled, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. Under the combined attacks of the old man and the bald man, the human demon finally couldn't hold on any longer and was sent flying. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect the formidable human demon to die in my hands. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. The hook-nosed old man punched the human devil in the chest, sending him flying. At the same time, the old man threw his head back and laughed maniacally before chasing after the human demon. Indeed, the human demon had killed a heavenly immortal before. If he killed the human demon now, he would have the right to brag about it. Wong wong wong. However, before the old man could catch up to the human demon, the cauldron on the other side shot out another terrifying suction. Compared to the previous suction force, this terrifying suction force was many times stronger. Not good. Sensing this terrifying suction force, Ningyu's expression changed drastically. He could sense that the target of the suction force was not the hook-nosed old man and the others, but him, Ninglu, and the others. Damn it. Ningyu was about to cry. When it rains, it pours. Originally, it was very difficult for them to resist the attacks of the hook-nosed old man. Now that they were being attacked by the 5 pill furnaces, they were instantly at an absolute disadvantage. The heavens are helping me. The sudden change clearly caused the hook-nosed elder to be a little stunned. But soon, the hook-nosed old man was pleasantly surprised. Just now, he thought that the 5-finger pill furnace would attack him. Who would have thought that it was a false alarm? Originally, he had the upper hand in his battle with the human devil. Now, with the help of the 5-finger pill furnace, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. Today is the day you die. The aquiline-nosed old man was in high spirits. He was very awe-inspiring. But what happened next made the hook-nosed old man feel like he ate shit. The suction force that shot out from the 5-finger pill furnace this time seemed to be a little different. The suction force from before had horrifying destructive power and could suck people dry. But the suction force this time was just pure suction force. Which was to say that the suction force this time was not threatening at all. If it was just the suction force without any threat, the hook-nosed old man would not have this kind of expression. The most crucial thing was that the suction force actually wrapped Ningyu and the human devil and the rest, sucking them into the 5-finger pill furnace right in front of here. Swoosh. Furthermore, after the 5-finger pill furnace sucked Ningyu and the rest into its body, it immediately tore through the void and tunneled inside. Hurry up and stop it. The hook-nosed old man's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly roared. At this time, the hook-nosed old man's expression was very ugly. To him, the human devil's escape was like a cooked duck flying. Just as he was about to kill the human devil, he did not expect this kind of thing to happen. The hook-nosed old man clenched both hands into fists. All of the energy in his body gathered on his wrists. With a backhand, he punched out twice. Boom. 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 Apart from the hook-nosed old man, the other 3 martial artists, including the bald man, also punched out. Several fist auras gathered together and suddenly blasted into the void where the five-finger pill furnace was escaping. Whoosh! In the void, inside the five-finger pill furnace. Everyone looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The five-finger pill furnace helped them. This result was indeed out of their expectations. Gulp. Swallowing hard, Ning Lu was the first to speak. This is the inside of the five-finger pill furnace. Ningyu, you are an alchemist and your soul power has reached the monarch stage. How do you think we should leave? After Ningyu had devoured Gong Yangqing's soul power, the strength of his soul had broken through the limit and reached a height he had not reached in his previous life. In the entire five-finger pill furnace, Ningyu's soul power was the strongest. Therefore, apart from Ning Lu, everyone else looked at Ningyu. There's no way for now. Under everyone's gaze, Ningyu shook his head and said in a low voice, "This five-finger pill furnace is the path to immortality. With the strength of my soul power, there's no way I can control it. Are we just going to sit here and wait for death?" Wu Potian asked. The Five Fingers Cauldron belongs to the Five Fingers Immortal, and the Five Fingers Immortal is a Heaven Immortal expert. Unless we advance to the Heaven Immortal realm, we won't be able to leave. Ningyu took a deep breath and said, "Whoosh." Ningyu's words spread in everyone's minds like a plague. What was the difference between being trapped in the five-finger pill furnace and being unable to leave? Although the space inside the five-finger pill furnace was relatively large, no one would be able to stand being trapped for a long time. If I'm not wrong, the five-finger pill furnace's destination should be the Myriad Demon's Ridge. The human demon, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke up. The transportation formation under Four Corner City is actually the five-finger pill furnace. Will the five-finger pill furnace let us out when we reach the Myriad Demon's Ridge? Wu Potian asked doubtfully. I'm not sure if it will let us out, but there's one thing I'm sure of. The human demon's expression turned solemn. The five-finger immortal's disciples should be waiting for us in the Myriad Demon's Ridge. What the F***ck? Wu Potian and the others immediately cursed. According to Mo Chenye, the five-finger immortal had a total of 5 disciples. The weakest disciple was a mid-stage earth immortal, and the strongest disciple was infinitely close to becoming a sky immortal. If all 5 of the five-finger pill furnace's disciples were here, it would be much more formidable than the hook-nosed old man's group. No matter how fast the five-finger pill furnace is, it will still take a long time to reach the Myriad Demon's Ridge from Four Corner City. Chapter 1920. The deepest part of the Five Fingers Cauldron? Hearing the human demon's words, Wu Potian and the others looked around with doubtful expressions. They could see the entire space of the Five Fingers Cauldron with a single glance. Although it was slightly bigger than an ordinary cauldron, it was only slightly bigger. They could reach the deepest part of the cauldron with a single leap. Now that the human demon said that he wanted to enter the deepest part of the Five Fingers Cauldron with Ningyu and the others, how could Wu Potian and the others not be shocked? Whoosh 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 whoosh. However, Ningyu and the others did not care whether Wu Potian and the others were shocked or not. The 4 of them immediately leapt into the air and charged toward the interior of the Five Fingers Cauldron at a terrifying speed. The Five Fingers Cauldron was ranked on the immortal ranking of cauldrons, thus the space inside it would not be so small. The reason why Wu Potian and the others thought the Five Fingers Cauldron was because their cultivation was too weak to see through the barrier left behind by the Five Fingers Celestial. The Five Fingers Celestial was a heaven immortal. How could anyone see through the barrier he left behind? If it weren't for the fact that the barrier had been set up for a long time, causing cracks to appear on it, Ningyu and the others would not have discovered it. Crack. Under the astonished gazes of Wu Potian and the others, Ningyu and the others rammed into an invisible barrier, causing a gap to appear on the barrier. Wu Potian and the others forcefully entered the barrier. Buzz buzz. As soon as Ningyu and the others entered the barrier healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. It did not take long for the barrier to heal completely. Gasp. This situation caused Wu Potian and the rest to suck in a cold breath of air. At this moment, they felt a little fortunate that Ningyu and the demonic humans were the ones who entered the cauldron. Otherwise, They would definitely be trapped here with just 2 celestial spirit stage natives. Now that Ningyu and the others had broken through the barrier and entered the deeper part of the Five Fingers Cauldron, they finally had a chance to survive. Watch out! At the same time, Ningyu and the human demon who had just broken through the barrier encountered a huge problem. Originally, after they broke through the barrier, their speed was not considered too fast. Almost every step they took, they would stop to observe their surroundings. However, just 5 seconds later, Ningyu and the others ran into big trouble. A giant puppet suddenly appeared in front of them. This puppet was 3 to 4 times the size of a normal person, and the aura it emitted was terrifying. Mid-Earth Immortal Stage. Ningyu and the rest knew very well how difficult it was to deal with an intermediate earthly immortal puppet. Under the same circumstances, with the combination of Ningyu and the other 3, with the human devil taking the vanguard and the other 3 suppressing the rear, they could easily kill an intermediate Earth Immortal expert. After all, the human demon was a mid-Earth Immortal. But now that he was facing a mid-Earthly Immortal stage puppet, the situation was completely different. There were 2 ways to deal with puppets. The first was to find its control center and make it his own. Second, use a powerful force to blast it into pieces. These 2 methods were obviously not practical for Ningyu and the rest. Their goal was to explore and find a way to break through the Five Fingers Cauldron, not to fight an intermediate Earth Immortal puppet. I'll hold this puppet back. You guys continue forward. Looking at the puppet that was emitting a terrifying aura, Hongmo took a deep breath and said, since the Five-Fingered Immortal left a puppet here to watch over the cauldron, it means that there must be some sort of secret deep within the cauldron. We cannot afford to waste any more time here. Otherwise, the moment the Five-Fingered Immortal leaves, the Five-Fingered Pill Cauldron will be destroyed. Otherwise, if the Five Fingers Cauldron flies to the Myriad Demon Ridge, we'll all die. I'll stay. You're not a match for the puppet. This puppet might be difficult to deal with, but I have a way to trap it. Human Demon took a step forward and said, all right, Senior Human Demon will stay. The 3 of us will continue forward. Ningyu was not an indecisive person. Although Hongmo had advanced to the Great Circle Sage stage and his overall strength could fight against an early human immortal, the puppet in front of him was a mid-Earth immortal. Among the 4 of them, only Human Demon could stay and fight the puppet head-on. Swoosh. Seeing Ningyu's decisiveness, Human Demon nodded his head in relief. He leaped up and started fighting with the giant puppet. Let's go. Seeing that Human Demon was holding back the giant puppet, Ningyu moved without hesitation and continued to rush into the depths of the Five Fingers Cauldron. Swoosh. Swoosh. Hongmo and Ninglu followed closely behind Ningyu, forming a triangle with Ningyu. What puzzled Ningyu was that he did not encounter any danger in the next half an hour after he left the giant puppet. Moreover, as they went deeper into the cauldron, the density of the surrounding essence chi became more and more terrifying. In the end, Ningyu felt like he was immersed in an ocean of essence chi. If I cultivate here, it won't take long for me to advance to the Great Circle Sage stage. Ningyu's face became extremely solemn. Right now, his cultivation was at the peak of the Sage realm. Although his overall strength was comparable to a human immortal intermediate stage martial artist, with the weakening of the plane barrier, the enemies that they were going to face next were basically from a higher plane and were extremely powerful. Under such circumstances, he urgently needed to improve his strength. He could feel that as long as he improved his cultivation to the Great Circle Sage stage, his strength would increase exponentially. Let's go. Ningyu took a deep breath and exhaled. Then, he stomped his feet on the ground and dashed forward again. Ningyu knew better than anyone that Human Demon was fighting against the giant puppet, and the safety of the Dark Emperor and Lu Wei depended on him. At other times, he might stay and cultivate, but now was a critical time. He could only continue to go deeper into the Five Fingers Cauldron and look for opportunities to leave it. Swoosh. 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 Since Ningyu had left, Hongmo and Ninglu naturally would not stay behind. They continued to move forward. Swoosh. However, they had only taken a few steps when they stopped in unison. Hiss. Looking at the scene in front of them, even though Ningyu and Ninglu had seen a lot, they could not help but gasp. Terrifying. Extremely terrifying. Extremely, extremely terrifying. It would not be an exaggeration to describe the scene in front of them as purgatory on earth. The entire area was filled with eerie white bones. Above the pile of bones was a circular altar. On the altar, there was a golden box that was emitting five-colored light. What a powerful medicinal effect! Although the golden box was very sealed, the terrifying medicinal effect that was emitted from the golden box could not be hidden from Ningyu and the others. The elixirs inside are at least peak royal level. Ningyu's pupils constricted as he said in a deep voice. Above the royal level elixirs were sacred level elixirs. Ningyu's current soul strength was at grade 1 royal level. Strictly speaking, he could only refine royal level elixirs. To refine royal level elixirs, he had to be at least a grade 10 royal level alchemist or a sacred level alchemist. Chapter 1921. At this thought, Ningyu's expression became extremely solemn. Although he wasn't someone from a higher plane, and his cultivation was only at the heavenly supreme realm in his previous life, he had devoured many experts from the higher planes. From their memories, he understood some information about the higher planes. A heaven immortal from a high-level cultivation plane was an overlord who could dominate a large territory and summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Even such a terrifying celestial immortal had to greet a true saint-grade pill refiner with the utmost respect. It could be said that in a high-level cultivation plane, every sage-grade alchemist had a very respectable status. He was not a heaven immortal, but he surpassed one. How could Ningyu not be shocked when the five-fingered immortal was a sky immortal to begin with, and it was highly possible that he was a sage-grade alchemist? How could such a terrifying person not have left a backup plan in his alchemy cauldron? The more Ningyu thought about it, the more solemn his expression became. I'll go get the golden box. While Ningyu was pondering, Ninglu's eyes turned cold and he immediately dashed toward the golden box. Ningyu's expression changed when he saw Ninglu rushing out recklessly. He hurriedly shouted, "Come back! Rumble!" However, Ningyu's shout was obviously slower by half a beat. An illusory palm print suddenly shot out from the golden box and slapped toward Ninglu. Break! Ninglu seemed to have guessed that this would happen. The essence chi in his body surged and a dark golden branch containing terrifying essence chi suddenly shot out from the top of his head. Without a doubt, the dark golden branch was Ninglu's natal branch. As the tree of the world, Ninglu had long refined all the dark golden branches into one. Crack! When the dark golden branches came into contact with the illusory palm print was shattered on the spot. Hey! A soft sound of surprise was heard the moment the illusory palm was shattered. It was obvious that the martial artist who had made the sound was full of disbelief. No matter who you are, the fact that you can barge into this place means that you have some ability. An ethereal voice rang in the ears of Ningyu and the others. Ever since I descended into the immortal spirit realm, a total of several dozen people have been sucked into the five-finger pill cauldron. Of those people, more than half have made it here. All those who managed to barge their way here, I'll give them a huge gift. I'll use them as fertilizer to nourish my five-finger immortal pills. As the illusory voice was heard, an invisible pressure suddenly descended upon the place. Under this invisible pressure, Ningyu, the Red Devil, and the others couldn't bear it any longer. They couldn't help but want to kneel down. The pressure of an earth immortal. The terrifying pressure had surpassed the limit of a human immortal and was heading straight for an earth immortal. If the pressure was only at the level of a human immortal, Ningyu, Hong Fiend, and the others would be able to withstand it if they joined forces. But now, the power was heading straight for the Earth Immortals. How could they stop it? Ha ha ha, stop your pointless struggle. With your nourishment, I will be able to successfully refine the five-finger immortal pill in a few hours. A burst of wild laughter echoed in the ears of Ningyu and the others. Following this, a terrifying suction force was emitted from the golden box, which instantly wrapped around Ningyu and the others and dragged them into the golden box. Puff! As soon as they entered the golden box, Ningyu felt a little breathless due to the terrifying pressure. He even spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. Is this the five-finger immortal pill? Suppressing the pressure coming from all over his body, Ningyu stared fixedly at the illusory figure in front of him and the fist-sized pill beside the illusory figure. The pill was silvery white in color and emitted a faint red glow. It was indeed Ningyu's first time seeing a silvery white pill emitting a red glow. That's right, this is the five-finger immortal pill. The illusionary figure nodded and said, "You should be proud to be the fertilizer for the five-finger immortal pill." "You are the five-finger immortal?" Ningyu asked as his gaze landed on the illusionary figure. "Yes, and no." The illusionary figure nodded at first, then shook his head and said, "The three of you better stand beside the five-finger immortal pill and let it devour you. That way, you will feel less pain." Wait a minute. How shrewd was Ningyu? When they were outside, the illusionary figure's palm print was broken by Ninglu with a single move. The reason they had entered the golden box was because the golden box had emitted a terrifying suction force. Furthermore, they were already in a life-or-death situation with the illusionary figure. Why would the illusionary figure let them go? However, the illusionary figure did not attack first. This was a little thought-provoking. Did the illusionary figure not want them to suffer? That was obviously nonsense. Therefore, there was only one possibility. The illusionary figure was not at its peak. In other words, the illusionary figure was only a clone that the five-finger immortal had left in the five-finger immortal pill cauldron. Perhaps this doppelganger was very powerful in the beginning, but as time passed, coupled with the eerie white bones on the outside, it directly caused the illusory figure's strength to drop by a huge level. "Everyone, attack together." Ningyu's eyes glinted coldly as he channeled the primordial chi in his body into the red demon sword. He held the red demon sword in his hand and slashed out with it. Die. When he saw Ningyu attack, Ninglu also took out the natal branch in his body and charged forward. As for the red demon, it turned into a red flying sword and slashed at the illusionary figure. The illusionary figure looked flustered when he saw Ningyu and the others suddenly attack. However, his expression disappeared in a flash, so no one saw it. "Since you are courting death, I shall grant your wish." The illusionary figure waved its hands repeatedly and produced several palm imprints in an instant. These palm imprints were even more terrifying than the previous ones. Some of them were even close to materializing. Crack, crack, crack. However, Ningyu and the others were not weak either. Ningyu wielded the red demon sword and slashed apart the palm imprints on the spot. Ninglu also activated the natal branch and went on a killing spree. The red demon's battle record was slightly weaker. He did not seem to be focused on destroying the palm imprints. Instead, he slowly made his way to the side of the five-finger immortal pill. Oh no! The illusionary figure was very perceptive. He noticed that something was wrong when the red demon approached the five-finger immortal pill. "If you dare touch my five-finger immortal pill, I will kill you," the illusionary figure roared. "You want to kill me? In your next life." Under the threat of the illusionary figure, the red demon slashed at the tray below the five-finger immortal pill and sent it flying. Swoosh! The five-finger immortal pill flew in the direction of Ningyu. Ningyu was busy blocking the palm imprints. When he felt a cold gleam flying toward him, he immediately turned around. However, when Ningyu turned around, his mouth opened involuntarily. Chapter 1922. The five-finger immortal pill ingestion plan did not give Ningyu any time to think before it entered his body. Moreover, the horrifying medicinal power of the five-finger divine pill instantly engulfed Ningyu's body. Crack, crack, crack. Clear and melodious sounds came from Ningyu's body. These voices caused Ningyu's pupils to constrict, and he was unable to maintain his composure. His body had been tempered several times before. Chilean blood and true dragon blood tempered his body. Every time he tempered his body, a large amount of impurities would be expelled from his body. Moreover, every time he tempered his body, his physical strength would increase exponentially. Initially, he thought that he wouldn't have another chance to temper his body after being tempered by the Kirin's blood and the true dragon's blood. However, he accidentally swallowed the five-finger immortal pill, which gave him another chance to temper his body. 5-finger divine pill to temper his body. No, I can't temper my body now. Although Ningyu wanted to temper his body immediately, he knew better than anyone that he must not temper his body before dealing with the illusory figure, because the illusory figure would definitely not sit back and do nothing. Ningyu was right. The illusory figure was on the verge of going berserk. He had guarded the 5-finger divine pill for such a long time. Just as he was about to get it, he did not expect it to be swallowed by a martial artist at the peak of the sage realm. How could he not be angry? Now, the illusory figure only had one thought in his mind, which was to kill Ningyu and refine the 5-finger divine pill as soon as possible before its medicinal power completely dissipated. Protect Ningyu. However, the illusory figure wanted to kill Ningyu. How could Ninglu and the Red Devil let him do as he pleased for no reason? Then, Ninglu and the Red Devil rushed out and stood beside Ningyu, one on the left and one on the right. I will kill anyone who dares to stop me. The illusory figure was extremely furious. He raised his head and shouted, charging straight at Ningyu. Although he would definitely be attacked by Ninglu and the Red Fiend if he charged blindly like this, the illusory figure couldn't care less. This was because with every passing second, the medicinal effects of the 5-finger immortal pill would weaken a little. Once the power of the 5-finger immortal pill completely disappeared, his years of planning would be in vain. Kill. Kill. Ninglu and the Red Fiend went all out. Everyone used their full strength. Among them, Ninglu had used his natal branch. The Red Fiend had somehow taken the Red Fiend sword from Ningyu's hand and fused it with the Red Fiend sword, launching a shortkill attack. Puff. Puff. In the face of the two terrifying attacks, the illusory figure seemed to have not seen them at all and continued to rush towards Ningyu without a care. However, as it was charging forward, the illusory figure was struck by two terrifying attacks and immediately spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. Fresh blood spurted out, and the illusory figure's aura dropped by another level. If the aura that the illusionary figure emitted previously was that of an early Earth immortal, it had now fallen to the peak of a human immortal. Moreover, as Ninglu and the Red Fiend continued to attack, the illusory figure's aura continued to drop. Go to hell! Although the aura had dropped to the human immortal realm, the illusory figure forcefully broke through the defense of Ninglu and the Red Fiend and descended in front of Ningyu. A cold voice came out of the illusory figure's mouth. Then, the illusory figure suddenly turned into a small 5-finger immortal cauldron and slammed towards Ningyu. Puff! Under the impact of the small 5-finger immortal cauldron, Ningyu spat out a mouthful of blood and his body was on the verge of collapsing. If this was before the tempering of the 5-finger immortal pill, Ningyu would definitely not be able to withstand this impact. But now, his physical strength had once again improved qualitatively. With just his physical strength, he could even easily kill a martial artist in the intermediate human immortal realm. With his various trump cards, he was confident that he could kill a martial artist in the peak of human immortal realm. Of course, this was all based on the current situation. Ningyu had only refined 1/10 of the power of the 5-finger immortal pill. Once Ningyu completely refined all 5 of the 5-finger immortal pills, to what extent would his overall strength reach? But now, Ningyu was faced with 2 choices. First, stop tempering his body with the 5-finger immortal pill and increase his cultivation. In that case, he could easily increase his cultivation to the human immortal realm or even the peak of human immortal realm with the help of the 5-finger immortal pill. After all, the 5-finger immortal pill was a peak monarch level elixir that was infinitely close to the sage level. Every time such an elixir appeared, it would cause heaven immortals to kill each other. Second, continue tempering his body with the 5-finger immortal pill. In that case, the strength of his body could be increased to an extremely terrifying level. By then, he could even compete with an early Earth immortal realm martial artist with his physical strength alone. Either of the 2 choices could increase Ningyu's overall strength by several times or even dozens of times. Tempering my body. Ningyu gritted his teeth and decided to continue tempering his body on the spot. Now that the plane barrier had loosened and the immortal spirit state had undergone a huge change, it was no longer the peak of the sage realm. It was foreseeable that after a period of time, the native martial artists of the immortal spirit state would experience a huge increase in their cultivation. Peak sage experts like Wu Potian and the divine war crane could easily break through to the sage perfected stage or the human immortal realm. After all, they had been stuck at the peak of the sage realm for too long, and the energy in their bodies had reached a terrifying level. It could be said that every peak sage expert of the immortal spirit state could instantly kill a peak sage expert from a higher plane. They just lacked a cultivation environment. I'm so angry. The illusory figure was furious when he saw that he had failed to knock Ningyu away. But as the clone of the five-finger immortal, the illusory figure knew that he had missed the best opportunity. Following that, with every passing minute, his strength would decrease a little, while the hardness of Ningyu's body would increase a little. Under such circumstances, he would never be a match for Ningyu. With Ningyu in front of him and Ninglu and the Red Devil behind him, he had no way out. The illusory figure took a deep breath and said viciously, "Since you have swallowed my five-finger immortal pill, I will kill all your friends and let you live in endless pain forever." This was the five-finger immortal pill cauldron, and the illusory figure was the clone of the five-finger immortal pill. He could control the five-finger immortal pill cauldron perfectly. If he wanted to kill the Dark Emperor and Lu Wei, it would be very easy. "How dare you!" Ningyu opened his eyes and forcefully stopped the tempering of the five-finger immortal pill. The five-finger immortal pill was a little special. Once he stopped, Ningyu could only choose the second option, which was to use it to increase his cultivation. Originally, Ningyu could complete the tempering and strengthen his body by several times. He could use his body to fight against a primary stage Earth immortal martial artist. Now that he stopped the tempering, Ningyu could only use his physical strength to fight against a peak stage human immortal martial artist. If he wanted to fight or kill a primary stage Earth immortal martial artist, Ningyu only had one choice. That was to completely refine the five-finger immortal pill within 3 minutes and break through to the human immortal realm. Chapter 1923. The illusionary figure's aura continued to drop. Now, it was only at the peak of the human immortal realm. Although Ningyu had only consumed a portion of the five-finger immortal pill, his physical body was already strong enough to fight against a peak human immortal realm martial artist. Clenching his right hand into a fist, Ningyu took a step forward and punched at the illusionary figure. "You're courting death." The illusionary figure was enraged. His eyes emitted a cold gleam as he charged at Ningyu. Almost instantly, Ningyu and the illusionary figure began to fight. Crack! The power of a peak human immortal realm martial artist was extremely strong. With a crisp sound, the golden box that Ningyu and the others were in suddenly cracked open. Then, it completely shattered. "Let's go." As soon as the golden box shattered, Ninglu and the Red Devil joined the battle. Although the illusionary figure would definitely lose if the battle continued like this. However, they were inside the five-finger cauldron, and the illusionary figure was a clone of the five-finger immortal. Who knew if the five-finger immortal had a backup plan? What if the five-finger immortal's backup plan appeared just as Ningyu was about to win? Wouldn't Ningyu be doomed? The current situation was very clear. As long as the two of them joined forces, together with Ningyu's incredible physical strength, they would be able to kill the illusionary figure in less than 3 minutes. Under such circumstances, they naturally would not sit idly by. Rumble. As soon as Ninglu and the Red Devil made their moves, the situation became one-sided. Although Ningyu had the upper hand, the illusionary figure could still struggle. But now, the illusionary figure could only struggle like a trapped beast. It was difficult for it to even struggle. Puff. The battle lasted for another 2 minutes. Finally, the illusionary figure spat out a mouthful of blood and turned into nothingness. Puff. What Ningyu and the others didn't know was that after they joined forces to kill the illusory figure, in a forest in the Myriad Demons Ridge, an old man suddenly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, and his body directly fell from the sky to the ground. Ka. The old man leaped up from the ground and clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were filled with malice. If Ningyu and the others were here, they would definitely notice that the old man's physique was similar to that of the illusory figure. Five-fingered immortal. That's right, the old man was none other than the owner of the five-fingered cauldron, the five-fingered celestial. How dare you touch my five-finger immortal pill? No matter who you are, no matter where you go, I will find you and grind your bones into dust. The five-fingered immortal clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Even his face had become somewhat distorted. In order to refine the five-finger immortal pill, he didn't hesitate to descend from a higher plane to the immortal spirit realm and spent a large amount of medicinal ingredients. Just as he was about to successfully concoct the pill, someone suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Not only did that person kill the clone he had left in the Five Fingers cauldron, he even swallowed the Five Fingers immortal pill. How could he not be angry? Forget it, I'll put this matter aside for now. I'll settle the score with you after I've obtained the power of origin. The five-fingered immortal took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. The plane barrier had loosened, and his suppressed cultivation had also gained some leverage. Even though he couldn't display the strength of a sky immortal, he could use some trump cards to display the strength of a peak earth immortal. Actually, he had two plans for descending to the immortal spirit realm. The first plan wasn't to refine the five-finger immortal pill, but to obtain the power of origin. After all, the five-finger immortal pill was only a peak royal grade pill. There was still a gap between it and a true sage grade pill. The power of origin was different. The effect of the power of origin was comparable to that of a sage grade pill. As long as he could obtain a large amount of power of origin, when he returned to a higher plane, he could even advance to the mid-sky immortal stage. Once one's cultivation reached the sky immortal stage, every small step forward was 100 times more difficult than ascending to the heavens. An early sky immortal stage martial artist could rule over a territory, while a mid-sky immortal stage martial artist could rule over several territories. The more territories they ruled, the more resources they would have, and the faster their cultivation would be. Therefore, who wouldn't want to rule over more territories? Whoosh! Ningyu didn't know about the five-finger immortal's plan. After killing the illusory figure, he heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to refine the remaining power of the five-finger immortal pill in his body. Ningyu's cultivation was currently at the peak sage grade. With just his physical strength, he could fight against a peak human immortal stage martial artist. But that wasn't enough. Ningyu's plan was to refine the five-finger immortal pill as soon as possible, then see if he could control the five-finger immortal pill furnace. After all, if he wanted to leave the five-finger immortal pill, he had to control it. Otherwise, he could only look for the five-finger immortal and beg him for help. Of course, Ningyu knew better than anyone that he could look for help from anyone but the five-finger immortal. He had killed the five-finger immortal's clone and obtained the five-finger immortal pill. It would be strange if the five-finger immortal was willing to help him. Buzz. Luckily, Ningyu had used the five-finger immortal pill to refine his body first. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to withstand the terrifying power of the five-finger immortal pill. The energy in his body rumbled, and Ningyu's aura skyrocketed at a terrifying speed. Bang! Not long after, there was a muffled sound. Ningyu opened his eyes, and the aura in his body disappeared in a flash. Complete sage grade. Although Ningyu withdrew his aura quickly, the sudden release of his aura did not escape the senses of Ninglu and the Hongmo. Sensing the terrifying aura emitted from Ningyu's body, Ninglu and the Hongmo looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Was the five-finger immortal pill really that terrifying? How long had it been? Only a dozen or so seconds had passed since he killed the illusory figure. In just a dozen seconds, Ningyu had advanced from the peak sage grade to the complete sage grade. It was a miracle. Bang! What surprised the Hongmo and Ninglu was yet to come. Another dozen seconds later, there was another muffled sound. Early stage human immortal grade. Ningyu's cultivation had advanced from the complete sage grade to the real early stage human immortal grade. Rumble. When Ningyu advanced to the early stage human immortal grade, the void above the five-finger immortal pill cauldron suddenly trembled. Following this, several thunderbolts appeared, trying to strike Ningyu. However, this was the immortal spirit region. If the thunderbolts wanted to strike Ningyu, they would first have to break through the defense of the plane barrier. Moreover, after breaking through the defense of the plane barrier, they would have to break through the defense of the five-finger immortal pill cauldron. The thunderbolts in the void seemed to be very intelligent. They only appeared for a while before they suddenly disappeared. A powerful being could discover them. The thunderbolts did not retreat, but hibernated in the void. Chapter 1924. Ninglu and Hongmo thought that this would be the end of Ningyu's advancement to the early-stage human immortal realm. To their surprise, Ningyu's aura continued to rise. Crack. Under the pressure of Ningyu's powerful aura, the surrounding void began to crackle. Ninglu's mouth was agape, his face filled with disbelief. Hongmo, who was at the side, stood rooted to the ground with a dumbfounded expression. Both of them were extremely confused. Logically speaking, the medicinal power of the five-finger immortal pill shouldn't be that strong. Ningyu had used the medicinal power of the five-finger immortal pill to temper his body, increasing his physical strength to the peak human immortal realm. The remaining medicinal power of the five-finger immortal pill wasn't at its peak. Under such circumstances, Ningyu was still able to break through consecutively. It was unbelievable. Ninglu and Hongmo weren't the only ones who found it unbelievable. Ningyu himself was in disbelief too. Is there something strange about this five-finger immortal pill? Ningyu's expression turned solemn. He had already determined the grade of the five-finger immortal pill after using it to temper his body. A 10th grade emperor grade pill was only a step away from becoming a sacred grade pill. If it was a real sacred grade pill, its effects would be obvious. Even if a portion of the medicinal power was used up, Ningyu would still be able to advance to the mid-stage human immortal realm easily. However, the medicinal power of a 10th grade emperor grade pill wouldn't be able to last until Ningyu reached the mid-stage human immortal realm. Buzz. While Ningyu was feeling confused, the yuan qi in the five-finger immortal pill cauldron flew toward him. I got it. The arrival of countless essence qi made Ningyu instantly understand the ins and outs of the matter. The reason the five-finger immortal was furious about losing the five-finger immortal pill wasn't because it was a 10th grade emperor grade pill, but because it was the key to controlling the five-finger immortal pill cauldron. To be exact, the five-fingered immortal had placed the key to controlling the five-fingered cauldron in the five-fingered immortal pill. Now that Ningyu had swallowed the five-finger immortal pill, he could naturally control the five-finger pill cauldron. However, at this time, Ningyu did not have time to think about how to control the five-fingered alchemy furnace. What he needed to do now was to do everything possible to improve his cultivation. Ninglu, Hongmo, the inside of the cauldron is safe. Go help Human Devil and see if you can capture that giant puppet alive. Ningyu immediately sat down cross-legged and instructed Ninglu and the Red Devil while devouring the remaining medicinal efficacy of the five-finger elixir in his body and the primordial qi that surged over. Multitasking. Ever since he advanced to the early human immortal stage, Ningyu could even multitask 4 times without a problem, let alone 3 times. After all, human immortal level experts could already be called immortals. The five-fingered alchemy furnace is already safe. To be honest, Ninglu and Hongmo were very confused when they heard Ningyu's instructions. They had only killed a clone of the five-fingered immortal. Who knew if the five-fingered immortal had any other tricks up his sleeves? Why would Ningyu say that the five-fingered alchemy furnace was safe? The key to controlling the five-fingered alchemy furnace is the five-fingered immortal pill. Ningyu, who could see the doubts in their eyes, explained in a deep voice, the five-fingered alchemy furnace is now under my control. Whoosh. Ninglu and Hongmo were relieved by Ningyu's words. Since Ningyu was in control of the five-fingered alchemy furnace, there was no point for them to stay any longer. Human Devil was still fighting the giant puppet, so the two of them could free up their hands to help. Although their cultivation had not reached the human immortal stage, it was not a problem for them to control the giant puppet from the side. Swish, swish. With a flash, Ninglu and the Red Fiend disappeared. Breakthrough. After Ninglu and Hongmo left, Ningyu hurriedly used the spiritual transformation art to the extreme and began to devour the remaining medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill and the surrounding primordial qi. Fut. However, Ningyu had not devoured for long before he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was on the verge of collapsing. Oh no, the medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill has completely exploded. Ningyu's face was extremely gloomy. It was obvious that the five-fingered immortal knew that he had devoured the five-fingered immortal pill. However, the five-fingered immortal did not want him to devour the five-fingered immortal pill peacefully. Therefore, he completely detonated the medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill, causing it to completely explode in Ningyu's body. If Ningyu's cultivation had been at the Earth Immortal stage, then the detonation of the five-fingered immortal pill would have been fine. After all, he could instantly devour the five-fingered immortal pill. However, the problem was that Ningyu was only at the early stage of the human immortal stage. There was still a long way to go before he could reach the mid-stage of the human immortal stage. Moreover, the spiritualization skill was only at the 9th level. Therefore, the speed at which he devoured the medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill and the primordial qi was relatively slow. I must cultivate the spiritualization skill to the 10th level. Ningyu made a prompt decision and decided to use his body to withstand the impact of the primordial qi and the medicinal efficacy. As for himself, he would focus on cultivating the spiritualization skill. Although the speed at which the first 9 levels of the spiritualization skill devoured primordial qi was fast, it was far from enough for Ningyu. The cultivation of the 10th level of the spiritualization skill was imminent. He could not rush the cultivation of the 10th level of the spiritualization skill. Ningyu first took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then, Ningyu went through the cultivation method of the 10th level of the spiritualization skill in his mind before he began to cultivate. Fortunately, Ningyu had cultivated the spiritualization skill to the peak of the 9th level, so he was not too far away from the 10th level. Moreover, his soul force was at the first-grade monarch stage and his cultivation was at the early stage of the human immortal stage. Therefore, it only took him a few seconds to successfully cultivate the 10th level of the spiritualization skill. Otherwise, he estimated that he would need at least an hour to successfully cultivate the 10th level of the spiritualization skill. Devour everything. After cultivating the spiritualization skill to the 10th level, Ningyu's confidence instantly increased. He exerted the spiritualization skill to the extreme and began to devour madly. Kai kai. As the primordial qi in his body increased, Ningyu's body emitted a kai kai sound. Fortunately, this sound did not last for too long. When Ningyu advanced to the mid-stage of the human immortal stage, it stopped abruptly. Rumble. A terrifying aura shot out from Ningyu's body into the sky. Mid-stage of the human immortal stage. Ningyu's cultivation had reached the terrifying mid-stage of the human immortal stage. Only a few minutes had passed since Ningyu advanced to the early stage of the human immortal stage. From the early stage to the mid-stage of the human immortal stage in just a few minutes, Ningyu had created another miracle. Of course, Ningyu had created many miracles, so it was no longer surprising. There's still so much primordial qi. Chapter 1925. Now, Ningyu was faced with two choices. First, he could devour and refine all the yuan qi and the remaining medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill. In this way, his cultivation should be able to reach the peak of the human immortal stage without any suspense. However, this was also very risky. After all, Ningyu had made successive breakthroughs on the same day. His cultivation had not stabilized and was still fluctuating. If he were to break through to the peak of the human immortal stage now, there was a high possibility that the yuan qi in his body would become chaotic. It was not a wise move. Second, he could stop cultivating immediately and find a way to store all the yuan qi and medicinal effects as his trump card. With such a large amount of elemental qi, if handled properly, it could even be used to launch a sneak attack on an intermediate Earth Immortal expert. In other words, with so much yuan qi, Ningyu had the ability to kill a mid-stage Earth Immortal stage martial artist. After all, any intermediate earthly immortal realm expert possessed numerous trump cards, and it was as difficult as ascending the heavens to kill them. Black bead. Ningyu did not think for too long. He took out the black bead that he had taken from Mo Qianye. In Ningyu's opinion, since the black bead could store origin energy, it could definitely store so much yuan qi and the remaining medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill. Go in. After taking out the black bead, Ningyu immediately used his soul power to control the yuan qi around him to enter the black bead. This seemed easy, but it was actually quite difficult to do. If it was not for Ningyu's current cultivation, terrifying physical strength, and powerful soul power, he would not have been able to complete this task. Drip. Drip. Time was ticking away. In order to store all the yuan qi and the remaining medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill into the black bead, Ningyu could be said to have expended Herculean effort. From the moment Ningyu decided to store yuan qi to the moment he stored all the yuan qi into the black bead, it took him a total of 10 minutes. Ningyu heaved a sigh of relief when he had successfully stored all the primordial qi into the black pearl. He looked as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. If someone was next to Ningyu at this time, they would definitely see that Ningyu's whole body was soaked in sweat, and bean-sized beads of sweat were dripping down his forehead. In order to store this vital energy, Ningyu was almost exhausted. Whoosh! After tossing the black bead into his storage ring, Ningyu sat down with his legs crossed and began to circulate a spell technique to recover. Although Ningyu wanted to help Human Demon and the others, he was well aware of his own situation. At this moment, even a random sage-level warrior could easily kill him. Therefore, his top priority was to recover to his peak state as soon as possible, not to help the demonic humans. While Ningyu was recuperating, on the other side of the battlefield, the scales of victory were tilting in the human demon's favor. Because Ninglu and the Red Fiend had already joined the battlefield. Originally, Human Demon had the upper hand. Now, with the addition of two new forces, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. Ninglu and the Red Fiend restrained the puppet from the side, while Human Demon attacked from the front. Although Human Demon's cultivation was only at the middle stage of Earth Immortal, he used to be a Sky Immortal expert. Against a puppet of the same cultivation level, especially with Ninglu and the Red Fiend holding it back, it naturally wasn't too difficult. Human Demon stomped on the ground, his body rose into the air, and rushed toward the giant puppet. Clenching his right hand into a fist, Human Demon punched the giant puppet's head without hesitation. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. Following that, the Human Demon quickly retreated while the giant puppet crashed into the ground. If it weren't for Ningyu's order to capture the giant puppet alive, Human Demon's punch would have been enough to flatten the giant puppet's head. Of course, even if Human Demon could flatten the giant puppet's head, he wouldn't be able to kill it. This was because there were only two ways to kill the giant puppets. One was to use brute force to blow it up, and the other was to destroy the puppet's core. Guard me, I'm going to set up a formation to capture. Human Demon immediately shouted at Ninglu and the Red Fiend after sending the giant puppet flying. However, Human Demon's expression changed drastically as soon as he finished speaking. Rumble. That was because a terrifying sound suddenly rang in his ears. Then, the entire cauldron began to shake. What's going on? The sudden change caused Human Demon's pupils to shrink, his face full of confusion. Whoosh! At this moment, Ningyu suddenly opened his eyes and took a step forward, landing beside Human Demon. Someone's attacking the cauldron. Since Ningyu had control over the cauldron, he naturally knew why it was shaking. The cauldron is already under your control, and its path has also deviated. So why is there still someone attacking it? The Red Fiend asked. If I've guessed correctly, the one attacking the cauldron should be the five-fingered immortal's disciple, Ningyu said with a grave expression. The five-fingered immortal's disciple? Hearing Ningyu's words, the Red Fiend and Ninglu's eyes narrowed. According to Mo Qianye, the five-fingered immortal had a total of 5 disciples. Even the weakest one was in the intermediate earthly immortal realm. Even his eldest disciple was infinitely close to the heavenly sovereign realm. Rustle. In an instant, Ninglu and the Red Fiend shifted their gazes to Human Demon. With Ningyu's overall strength, he might be able to confront and even kill an early earthly immortal realm cultivator. But facing an intermediate earthly immortal realm cultivator, he shouldn't be able to escape unscathed. That also meant that in the entire cauldron, only human demon could kill an intermediate earthly immortal realm cultivator. How many people are out there? Human demon asked. At this moment, human demon could feel the tension in the air. Having just experienced a great battle, although he had firmly suppressed the giant puppet, it would still take him a few more minutes to control it and make it work for him. And it was obvious that no one would be able to fight for him in these few minutes. 2. Ningyu took a deep breath and said to the human devil, "Throw the giant puppet into the deepest part of the cauldron. I will activate the array inside the cauldron to trap it. Next, you and I will go out to fight the two experts outside. You'll go out with me?" Human demon was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect Ningyu to say such a thing. If the two people outside were the five-fingered immortal's disciples, then their cultivation would at least be in the intermediate earthly immortal realm and they would have many trump cards. Ningyu was a peak sage. No. Suddenly, human demon's eyes narrowed. His face was filled with shock. His attention had been focused on the giant puppet and the two experts outside. He didn't notice that Ningyu had advanced to the intermediate earthly immortal realm. Human demon sized up Ningyu. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. Not only had Ningyu's cultivation reached the intermediate earthly immortal realm, but his physique had also reached a terrifying level. Chapter 1926. You've actually advanced to the mid-stage human immortal stage. The human demon was shocked. He remembered very clearly that it had only been an hour or so since he and Ningyu parted ways. An hour wasn't short, but it wasn't long either. It was a miracle that Ningyu could advance to the mid-stage human immortal stage from the peak sage stage in an hour. It was an almost impossible miracle. "I'll deal with the two martial artists myself." The human demon's shock didn't last for long. He quickly turned to Ningyu and said, "Since you can control the Five Fingers Cauldron, why don't you stay here? When I'm fighting with the two martial artists outside, you can take the cauldron and leave." The human demon's plan was simple. He would hold back the two experts outside and buy enough time for Ningyu. In his opinion, even if Ningyu had advanced to the mid-stage human immortal stage, his strength wouldn't be too strong. With Ningyu's current strength, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to deal with an early-stage Earth Immortal stage expert. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to deal with a mid-stage or even a late-stage Earth Immortal stage expert. "Do you think you can still leave now?" Ningyu took a deep breath. He ignored the human demon's thoughts and leaped out of the Five Fingers Cauldron. "Damn it!" The human demon cursed under his breath when he saw Ningyu leave. He then followed closely behind Ningyu. Ningyu was only a mid-stage human immortal stage expert. The human demon didn't want Ningyu to die for nothing. "How dare you steal Master's Five Fingers immortal pill? I have to say, you're really bold." Outside the Five Fingers Cauldron, two martial artists stared at the human demon as he shot out of the cauldron and said in a low voice. The attention of these two martial artists was completely focused on the human demon. After all, Ningyu was only a mid-stage human immortal stage expert. He wasn't worthy of their attention. "So what if I did?" The human devil took a step forward, shielding Ningyu behind him and said in a cold voice, "You two intermediate Earth immortal cats and dogs are not enough to make me compromise." The two cultivators who blocked the way didn't hide their cultivation, so the human devil could easily see through their cultivation. They were both intermediate Earth immortal experts. The human demon's worry was greatly alleviated when he found out that the two cultivators blocking his way were at the intermediate Earth immortal realm. As long as there weren't any late Earth immortal experts, he and Ningyu might be able to contend against them. "I alone am enough to kill trash like you." The human demon's goading had clearly worked. One of the middle-aged men took a step forward and said in an awe-inspiring voice, "This day next year will be the anniversary of your death." Swords were drawn, and the battle was on the verge of breaking out. But right at this moment, Ningyu hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Who are the two of you? Quickly tell me your names." "I, Ningyu, Don't kill nameless people. Five-Finger Immortal's fifth disciple, Chu Feng. Five-Finger Immortal's fourth disciple, Chu Yu. The two intermediate Earth Immortal experts replied in unison. Senior Human Demon, you deal with Chu Feng. Leave Chu Yu to me. Ningyu thought for a moment, then said to the Human Demon, remember not to kill them immediately. If you can capture them alive, don't kill them. Arrogant. Arrogant. Ningyu's words infuriated Chu Feng and Chu Yu. Ever since they descended from the higher planes, they had never met a worthy opponent due to their powerful cultivation and terrifying soul power. Originally, they wanted to meet up with the Five-Finger Immortal in the Myriad Demon Ridge. But halfway there, they received news that the Five-Finger Immortal's immortal pill had been stolen. Thus, the two of them volunteered to kill those rascals. As for the other three disciples, they continued to head to the Myriad Demon Ridge to find a way to meet up with the Five-Finger Immortal. Swoosh. Chu Feng and Chu Yu obviously would not fight according to Ningyu's arrangement. Both of them charged at the Human Demon, intending to kill him together. After all, in their hearts, Ningyu was only an intermediate human immortal. How strong could he be? Therefore, their plan was to get rid of the Human Demon first, then deal with Ningyu. However, while dreams were plentiful, reality was harsh. How could Ningyu let the Human Demon deal with two of them at once? He hurriedly took out the red demon sword and slashed at Chu Yu. Swoosh. A terrifying sword gleam separated from the red demon sword and headed straight for Chu Yu. Even though Ningyu was only an intermediate human immortal, the power of his sword radiance was enough to kill an early Earth immortal. Even though Chu Yu was an intermediate Earth immortal, he could not ignore the sword radiance that was powerful enough to kill an early Earth immortal. I'll go kill this guy first. Chu Yu's expression was cold as she said to Chu Feng. Haha, let's compete and see who can get rid of the opponent first. Chu Feng was not flustered by Ningyu's terrifying strength. Instead, he threw his head back and laughed. Not only were they the disciples of the Five-Finger Immortal, but they were also well-deserved geniuses in their families. On the other hand, the Chu family was also a force that ruled over a region in the higher planes. Even though there were no heaven immortals in the family, there had been heaven immortals in the family a long time ago. The geniuses of the heaven immortal family practiced the real immortal arts and had a complete set of Daoist teachings. It was even rumored that Chu Feng and Chu Yu were qualified to be listed on the longevity roll in their own territories. Of course, that was not the case for now. Rumble. In an instant, Chu Feng and the Human Demon were engaged in a fierce battle. As soon as they clashed, Chu Feng noticed something wrong with the Human Demon. So you're injured? Chu Feng raised his eyebrows and said sinisterly, it seems like you're the same as us, also from a high-level plane. Moreover, your strength isn't bad. If you hadn't met me, you might have been able to keep your life. But since you've met me, you can only blame your bad luck. The Human Demon's injuries were not new. They were left from a long time ago when he fought with a heaven immortal. If the Human Demon was not injured, even Chu Feng would not be his match. Even though I'm injured, killing you is as easy as killing a dog. The Human Demon forced Chu Feng back and said coldly, ha ha ha. As if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, Chu Feng threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Then, he changed the topic and said fiercely, I was going to let you live, but since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Feng stomped on the ground and dashed forward again. Swoosh. Chu Feng's speed was so fast that the friction between him and the air produced a sizzling sound. Although Chu Feng was only a mid-stage Earth immortal, his overall strength was comparable to that of a late-stage Earth immortal. It was said that when Chu Feng had just advanced to mid-stage Earth immortal, he had challenged a late-stage Earth immortal elder in the family. There was no suspense in the outcome. Chapter 1927. To be able to defeat a late-stage Earth immortal expert in one move, even if that expert was not very talented, it was enough to show how terrifying Chu Feng was. Now that Chu Feng was fighting the Human Demon in his peak state, how could his combat power be weak? Rumble. The battle instantly escalated. Heaven imprisoning fists. The human demon clenched his right fist and charged at Chu Feng instead of retreating. Only the brave would win. Even though the human demon knew that Chu Feng was very strong, he was once a Sky Immortal expert, so his combat experience was many times greater than Chu Feng's. Therefore, even if Chu Feng was slightly stronger than him, he would not be able to defeat him in a short period of time, let alone kill him. While the human demon and Chu Feng were fighting fiercely, the battle between Ningyu and Chu Yu had reached its climax. Chu Yu was the fourth disciple of the five-fingered immortal. In terms of combat power, she was even stronger than Chu Feng. Ningyu had just started fighting with Chu Yu, but he was already at an absolute disadvantage. If not for the fact that Ningyu's body was full of Yuan Qi and his body was as strong as an Earth Immortal expert, he would have been killed by Chu Yu. Even so, Ningyu could not fight Chu Yu head-on. He could only keep slashing out with his sword to restrain Chu Yu. I can't go on like this, Ningyu thought to himself as he fought with Chu Yu. Chu Yu was strong, and her soul power was not weak either. If the battle continued like this, the one who would lose would definitely be Ningyu. Fight. Ningyu's eyes revealed a determined look. He poured all the Yuan Qi in his body into the red demon sword and slashed out with a backhand slash. Swoosh. Following the sword slash was the black bead. At this point, Ningyu finally decided to use the black bead. He would first use the sword slash to attract Chu Yu's attention, then use the horrifying Yuan Qi in the black bead. Only by doing so could he kill Chu Yu in one strike. Ningyu did not want to give Chu Yu a chance to escape. Child's play. Chu Yu's lips curled into a smile as she watched the sword slash coming at her. She waved her sleeve and a strong wind swept out, colliding with the sword slash in front of her. Catcher. The sword light that Ningyu slashed out only lasted for a few seconds before shattering. Ha ha ha, kid, you want to contend against me with just your strength. Sharpen your eyes in your next life. A person like me is someone you will never be able to. Seeing the sword light shatter, Chu Yu threw his head back and laughed. However, Chu Yu's laughter was only halfway through when it abruptly stopped. Because he saw a black bead coming at him at an unbelievable speed. Moreover, from the black bead, he sensed an energy fluctuation that made his heart palpitate. Not good. At the critical moment, Chu Yu shouted loudly. Then, she hurriedly mobilized the Yuan Qi in her body, trying to block the black pearl. All right. Ningyu, who was in the distance, clenched his fists tightly when he saw Chu Yu's actions. If Chu Yu chose to escape, he would become a joke if he used the black pearl to deal with Chu Yu. After all, Chu Yu was at the intermediate Earth Immortal stage. Her speed of escaping was not slow at all. However, Chu Yu chose to block the black pearl. In other words, she chose death. This was because the energy contained in the black pearl was the sum of the Yuan Qi in the Five Fingers Cauldron and the remaining medicinal efficacy of the Five Fingers Immortal Pill. With such a huge amount of energy, even an advanced Earth Immortal stage expert would not be able to withstand it 100% of the time, let alone an intermediate Earth Immortal stage expert. Human devil, retreat. Ningyu did not let Chu Yu's foolish action get to his head. Instead, he immediately informed the human devil to retreat. Ningyu didn't want to do something like sacrificing 800 men to kill 1,000 enemies. All right. In fact, the moment Ningyu threw out the black pearl, the human devil had already planned to retreat. The human devil was not stupid. He knew that the black pearl was the thing on Ningyu that made his heart palpitate. He did not want to bear the terrifying power of the black pearl. Chu Feng, save me. As the black pearl got closer and closer to him, Chu Yu finally realized his foolish action. But it was too late for him to retreat now. He had no choice but to ask Chu Feng for help. Damn it! Chu Feng's pupils shrank. His entire being was filled with anger. Although he and Chu Yu were not blood brothers, they were closer than blood brothers. Chu Yu was in danger of being killed. How could he not be angry? But anger was one thing. But Chu Feng did not lose his mind. He knew that if he took the risk to save Chu Yu now, he would most likely be severely injured. And if he did not save Chu Yu, then Chu Yu would most likely be killed. For a moment, he was faced with a dilemma. To save or not to save? This was the question. Boom. However, just when Chu Feng was considering whether or not to save Chu Yu, Ningyu controlled the black pearl and self-destructed in the air. Crack, crack, crack. The terrifying aftermath of the black pearl's explosion caused the surrounding void to explode. Countless spatial cracks appeared. Fart. Chu Yu, who was at the center of the black pearl's explosion, could not even hold on for a second. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Her breath instantly dropped from the intermediate Earth Immortal stage to the early Earth Immortal stage. Moreover, Chu Yu's aura continued to drop. Early Earth Immortal stage, peak Human Immortal stage, late Human Immortal stage, intermediate Human Immortal stage. Not long after, Chu Yu's breath dropped to the intermediate Human Immortal stage. I will make you pay with your lives. Chu Feng roared and rushed out until the aftermath of the Black Pearl's explosion weakened. But the direction Chu Feng rushed towards was not Ningyu and the human demon, but Chu Yu. He wanted to save Chu Yu first, then deal with Ningyu and the human demon. Boom. Unfortunately, Chu Feng had just rushed to Chu Yu's side when the Black Pearl exploded again. The aftermath of the extremely terrifying explosion blasted Chu Feng several feet away on the spot, and he fell heavily on the ground. Let's go together. This was the moment Ningyu had been waiting for. The energy contained within the Black Pearl was far beyond Chu Feng and Chu Yu's imagination. The first half of the explosion could severely injure Chu Yu. The second half of the explosion could severely injure Chu Feng. Seeing that Chu Feng and Chu Yu were both injured by the Black Pearl's explosion, Ningyu made a prompt decision to deal with these two troublemakers. Swoosh, swoosh. He and the human demon rushed towards Chu Yu, one on the left and the other on the right. Damn it. Looking at the approaching Ningyu, Chu Yu said coldly, if you dare kill me, my master and my fellow disciples will definitely grind your bones to dust. Swoosh. Hearing Chu Yu's words, Ningyu's eyes brightened. He instantly stopped in front of Chu Yu. What, have you thought it through? Seeing Ningyu stop, Chu Yu raised an eyebrow and said coldly, it's not too late for you to surrender now. I will inform my master, the Five Fingers Immortal, and have him personally refine one for you. Hold on, hold on. I haven't thought it through. Chapter 1928. You want to capture me alive? Hearing Ningyu's indifferent words, Chu Yu's pupils shrank, and his face turned deathly pale. He was very clear. Once he fell into Ningyu's hands, he would suffer a fate worse than death. You're smart. Ningyu didn't give Chu Yu too much time to think. He leaped up and arrived beside Chu Yu in a flash. His right hand clenched into a fist and punched Chu Yu's chest. Bang! The huge force that came from his chest caused Chu Yu to fly like a kite with a broken string. His body flew straight out. Whoosh! After his attack succeeded, Ningyu did not hesitate at all and immediately chased after him. Bang! Bang! Then, several crisp sounds rang out. A few of Chu Yu's ribs were broken by the explosion. Seal her. Ningyu's powerful soul power was unleashed, completely sealing Chu Yu. At this point, Chu Yu couldn't use any of her energy or soul power. It could be said that Chu Yu's life was in Ningyu's hands. Fart. Not long after Ningyu restrained Chu Yu, the human demon on the other side sent news of victory. The human demon didn't waste too much time dealing with the weakened Chu Feng. Grabbing Chu Feng's shoulder with his right hand, the human demon landed beside Ningyu. What should we do with the two of them? The human demon casually threw Chu Feng in front of Ningyu and frowned. They are the disciples of the Five-Fingered Immortal. I think we shouldn't kill them for now. I think the same. Ningyu nodded. They can be spared from death, but they can't escape punishment. As he spoke, Ningyu moved his feet and arrived in front of Chu Feng. He raised his left foot and stomped heavily on Chu Feng's head. Ningyu coldly said, tell me, where are your other three brothers? You want to know where they are? Dream on. Although Ningyu had stepped on his head, Chu Feng still said fiercely, if you have the ability, you can kill me. My master and a few other brothers will definitely help me, as you wish. Before Chu Feng could finish his words, Ningyu exerted force with his left foot and stomped down hard. Catcher. Although Ningyu did not use his Yuan Qi in this kick, He used his soul force. Under the pressure of the powerful soul power, Chu Feng's head was directly trampled into mush. Xiu. Immediately after, a cold light suddenly shot out from Chu Feng's body and flew into the distance at an extremely terrifying speed. Primordial spirit. The cold light that shot out of Chu Feng's body was none other than Chu Feng's primordial spirit. The reason why Ningyu chose to crush Chu Feng's head was not because he thought it was useless to keep Chu Feng alive, but because he realized that Chu Feng was trying to escape. After all, the strength of Chu Feng's soul force had reached the 3rd grade of the Emperor rank. If he used his soul force to escape, it would be difficult for Ningyu to control him. Under such circumstances, Ningyu naturally chose to strike first to gain the upper hand. Where do you think you're going? Since Ningyu had crushed Chu Feng's head, he was prepared to completely destroy his primordial spirit. Moreover, Chu Feng's primordial spirit was not the only one fleeing. His terrifying soul force and Yuan Qi were also attached to his primordial spirit, wanting to escape together. Devour. Ningyu's speed was not inferior to Chu Feng's. He quickly caught up to Chu Feng and circulated the spiritual transformation art to the extreme. He began to frantically devour the Yuan Qi and soul force attached to Chu Feng's primordial spirit. Kai Kai. After cultivating the spiritual transformation art to the 10th level, the speed at which Ningyu devoured Yuan Qi and soul force had clearly increased by several times. It only took Ningyu a few seconds to completely devour the vigorous Yuan Qi and soul force on Chu Feng's primordial spirit. Phew. After devouring the soul force and soul force on Chu Feng's primordial spirit, Ningyu couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Previously, in order to quickly advance to the intermediate human immortal stage, his foundation was a little unstable. Now that he had devoured Chu Feng, he instantly felt that his cultivation had completely stabilized. In fact, his combat power had been greatly improved. Although he still couldn't kill an intermediate Earth immortal stage warrior, it wasn't too big of a problem to resist a little. I'll leave Chu Feng's primordial spirit to the Red Devil. Ningyu held the Red Devil sword in his hand and slashed, piercing through Chu Feng's primordial spirit. Moreover, a terrifying suction force shot out from the Red Devil sword, sucking Chu Feng's primordial spirit into the sword. Swoosh. After doing all this, Ningyu leaped up and arrived in front of Chu Yu. I'll ask you a few questions now. If you can answer me honestly, I can choose to spare your life. If you insist on going about things the wrong way, I can only. Ningyu shrugged and said to Chu Yu. There's no need. If you want to kill me, do as you please. Chu Yu seemed to have made up his mind. He said coldly, even if you kill me, you won't be able to escape the pursuit of my master, the five-fingered immortal. Seeking death wholeheartedly. Interesting. Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at Chu Yu with interest. Even ants were greedy for life, let alone a powerful warrior like Chu Yu. Ningyu didn't believe that Chu Yu would seek death. In Ningyu's opinion, there must be something fishy about this. I know. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have discovered something frightening. His expression turned extremely ugly. What's going on? The human demon asked doubtfully when he saw Ningyu's expression. After taking a deep breath, Ningyu said, if I'm not wrong, this body of Chu Yu's is not his main body. In other words, this is Chu Yu's clone. Hiss. After hearing Ningyu's explanation, the human demon hurriedly unleashed his perception and looked at Chu Yu. The humanoid demon sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw what it was. No wonder Chu Yu was so fearless. It turned out that this body of his wasn't his main body but a clone. Could it be that Chu Feng's is also a clone? The human demon asked. Shaking his head, Ningyu said, Chu Feng's isn't a clone, but his main body. You can actually see that it's a clone. The conversation between Ningyu and the human demon fell into Chu Yu's ears. He revealed a terrified expression, his face full of incredulity. One had to know that even in the Chu family of the higher planes, there were no more than 5 people who knew that he had a clone. Even Chu Feng didn't know that this was a clone of himself. Now that Ningyu had seen through his clone, how could he not be surprised? However, although he was shocked, Chu Yu was still very calm. The corners of his lips curled up and he said sinisterly, to tell you the truth, my main body has also descended to the celestial spirit realm. You killing one of my clones won't affect me at all.
Oh,
it won't affect you at all? Ningyu raised his brows and said indifferently, although the myriad transformations art is heaven-defying, it's not without its flaws. You, Chuyu's pupils constricted and his face turned deathly pale. Chapter 1929. It's not too late for you to regret it now. Answer a few of my questions honestly, and I can guarantee to spare your wretched life. Ningyu crossed his arms and looked at Chuyu as he spoke indifferently. Actually, Ningyu already knew about the myriad embodiment technique and had even cultivated it before. The myriad embodiment technique that Ningyu had grasped was obtained from a genius of the pill puppet race. However, he had not cultivated it recently. Although Chuyu had hidden it rather well, Ningyu had discovered that he had cultivated the myriad embodiment technique before. Furthermore, he had already successfully cultivated the first half of it, allowing him to have thousands of clones. The myriad embodiment technique had a total of 3 parts. The pill puppet race genius that Ningyu had encountered previously had only grasped the first half. If Xiao Chen's guess was right, Chuyu should have the cultivation method for the middle half. Hence, before obtaining the middle half of the myriad embodiment technique, Ningyu could not possibly kill Chuyu. After all, the myriad embodiment technique was very likely to be a martial technique that surpassed the sage tier. Chuyu's expression turned gloomy when he heard Ningyu's words. He clenched his fists tightly as if he was having an intense internal struggle. Honestly speaking, if Ningyu did not know about the myriad embodiment technique, he would definitely not be as conflicted as he was now. This was because to him, who had cultivated the boundless embodiment transformation technique and had cultivated it to the middle section, losing a clone was not a big deal. However, since Ningyu knew about the myriad embodiment technique, it was very likely that he had a way to deal with his main body. Losing a clone was nothing, but if the main body was injured, the impact on him would be irreversible. While Chuyu was thinking, Ningyu did not disturb him. Instead, he went to the human demon's side and took out Chu Feng's primordial spirit from the red demon sword. Originally, Ningyu had intended to let the human demon devour Chu Feng's primordial spirit. After all, the human demon was very experienced in devouring primordial spirits and had already devoured the primordial spirits of several experts. If there were no surprises, if the human demon devoured Chu Feng's primordial spirit, there was a high chance that he would become a true human immortal. However, the human demon had just experienced a huge battle, so he was not in his peak condition. If an expert were to invade at this time, wouldn't they suffer a calamity? Therefore, handing over Chu Feng's primordial spirit to the human demon was the best choice. Be careful of Chuyu. Remember not to fall into his trap. The human demon didn't argue with Ningyu. He took the spirit and swallowed it. Then, he warned, also, you better find a place to undergo your tribulation. You can't suppress it for too long. Otherwise, if a large amount of it accumulates, no matter how strong your body is, you won't be able to resist it. I got it. You should rest and recuperate first. I know what to do. Ningyu waved his hand, signaling the human demon not to worry. He knew the condition of his body better than anyone else. The moment he left the 5-finger pill furnace, the lightning tribulation in the void immediately found him. Fortunately, he had used his soul strength and Yuan Qi to deceive the heavens. Otherwise, the tribulation clouds would have descended long ago. Anyway, be careful. If anything happens, inform me immediately. The human devil exhorted again before leaping into the 5-fingered cauldron. Ask away. As long as it's not something I can't say, I will definitely tell you. As soon as the human demon entered the 5-finger pill furnace, Chuyu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, if it involves secrets, even I can't do anything. Why did you come to the immortal spirit realm with such great fanfare? Ningyu shrugged, not beating around the bush and asking directly. Actually, Ningyu knew what Chuyu meant. After all, some large sects and families were very strict when it came to secrets. Many chose to leave a seal in their disciples' sea of consciousness. If anyone dared to pry into the secrets, the large sects would even detonate the seal. In other words, Yu knew the secrets, but he couldn't say it. Because if he did, the seal in his head would be activated and he would disappear. Naturally, it's for the source energy. Yu answered honestly, the plane barrier of the immortal spirit realm has already loosened greatly. I believe that after a period of time, the plane barrier will completely collapse. At that time, as long as one's cultivation is below the sky immortal level, they will be able to pass through without fear. Swoosh. Hearing this, Ningyu's face darkened. The strongest cultivator in the immortal spirit realm was only at the sage realm. Even if the plane barrier loosened and many people could break through to the immortal realm, they were still very weak compared to the experts of the higher planes. Not to mention the sky immortal, even an earth immortal would be able to dominate the entire immortal spirit realm. As the saying went, how could one allow others to sleep soundly beside one's bed? The experts that descended from the higher planes didn't care about anything. To them, as long as there was a fortuitous encounter, they would fight for it with everything they had. At that time, the immortal spirit realm would be in danger of being wiped out. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu tried his best to calm himself down. It was still too early to think about such things. The most important thing now was to solve the problem in front of him. The Five Fingers Immortal and his disciples. Ningyu looked at Yu and asked again, "Where are your master, the Five Fingers Immortal, and your other 3 disciples?" "The Myriad Demon Ridge," Yu replied. "How are their cultivation levels?" Ningyu continued. "My master, the Five Fingers Immortal, is a heaven immortal expert. In order to obtain the source energy, he sealed his own cultivation and reached the immortal spirit stage a long time ago." Yu was like a very obedient person as she answered Ningyu's questions honestly. Third senior brother, Guo Yong, is a late earth immortal, and his soul force is around grade 4 emperor level. Second senior brother, Liu Zhiqing, is a peak earth immortal, and his soul force is around grade 6 emperor level. Eldest senior brother, Chen Xian, is a perfected earthly immortal, or in other words, a half-step heaven immortal. Rumor has it that the strength of his soul has reached the peak of the monarch rank, and is only a step away from the true saint rank. After hearing Yu's answer, Ningyu's heart sank to the bottom. Although he knew from Mo Qianye that the Five Fingers Immortal's disciples were abnormal, he didn't expect them to be this abnormal. With his current overall strength, he could fight against a mid-stage Earth Immortal, but if he met a late-stage Earth Immortal, he would be dead. He had taken the Five Fingers Immortal's elixir and cauldron. Under such circumstances, if they met again, it would only be a fight to the death. With a gloomy expression, Ningyu looked at Yu and said in a deep voice, "Do you know about the transformation sect? I heard that a divine son of the transformation sect has also come to the immortal spirit realm." The transformation sect's divine son. Yu's expression changed drastically. She was shocked to the extreme. Yu's reaction was clearly out of Ningyu's expectation. According to his understanding, the God Transformation sect could only be regarded as a small sect in a high-level world. Even the sect master of the sect was only at the late Earth Immortal stage. Chapter 1930. I didn't expect the divine son of the Transformation God sect to appear, and is even at the celestial spirit state. Yu's expression was gloomy, as if she was thinking about how to spread this shocking news. The Transformation God sect might be a second-rate or even third-rate sect in a high-level plane, but the divine son of the Transformation God sect wasn't simple. There were rumors that the divine son of the Transformation God sect was the reincarnation of a heaven immortal, and there were also rumors that he was the reincarnation of an even more powerful expert. Of course, many people despised this rumor. They all thought that the God Transformation sect was the one who spread the rumor and wanted to make themselves look good. However, Yu knew very well that the divine son of the Transformation God sect really existed. And the most crucial point was that the divine son wasn't the reincarnation of an early-stage heaven immortal, but a mid-stage heaven immortal patriarch. An early-stage heaven immortal could already dominate a territory, let alone a mid-stage heaven immortal. Although the divine son of the God Transformation sect was only a middle-stage fairy immortal, his combat strength was still terrifying. I advise you not to provoke the Transformation God sect. Chu Yu returned to normal after a while and warned, "The divine son of the transformation god sect is extremely terrifying. In the celestial spirit state, even my master, the five-fingered immortal, wouldn't dare to say that he wouldn't lose." That terrifying? Ningyu was surprised. He thought that the divine son of the transformation god sect couldn't be that powerful. At best, he was just an earth immortal realm martial artist. Now that Chu Yu said this, he had to take it seriously. The five-fingered immortal was enough to give him a headache. Now, there was another divine son of the transformation god sect who was no weaker than the five-fingered immortal. Could he still reach the myriad demons' ridge safely? Thinking of this, Ningyu rolled his eyes and looked at Chu Yu. Chu Yu immediately hugged herself and felt goosebumps when she was stared at by Ningyu. Hand over the middle section of the great art of freedom transformation. Ningyu stretched out his right hand and said indifferently, "Don't try to play tricks with me. Since I know the great art of freedom transformation, I definitely know that what you gave me is not real. I don't have the middle part of the 10,000 freedom transformations." Chu Yu's eyes flickered, but in the end, he still gritted his teeth and said, "I only successfully cultivated the first half of the infinite freedom transformation technique. Otherwise, I would definitely abandon this clone." Not talking. Ningyu raised his eyebrows and said, "Very well, I have a way to deal with people like you." Ning growled. Then, Ningyu contacted Ninglu, who was in the five-finger pill furnace. Ninglu was the manifestation of the world tree, so it couldn't be better for him to devour Chu Yu. Even though the Chu Yu in front of him was only a clone, his cultivation was a genuine intermediate earthly immortal. Ningyu knew his own strength very well. It wasn't that he couldn't devour Chu Yu, he just couldn't devour Chu Yu's memories together. Obtaining the middle part of the myriad free transformations technique from Chu Yu was the most important thing right now. The reason for that was because their enemies were not only the five-fingered immortal, but they were also the mysterious and unfathomable god transformation sect's godchild. Whoosh! After receiving Ningyu's order, Ninglu instantly swept out of the five-finger pill furnace. Slap! Ninglu didn't stand on ceremony with Chu Yu. He landed in front of Chu Yu, stretched out his right hand and slapped Chu Yu's head. Ah! Along with Chu Yu's scream, a dark golden branch drilled out of Ninglu's palm. Obviously, this dark golden branch was Ninglu's natal branch. In order to devour Chu Yu as soon as possible, Ninglu used his trump card right from the start. Fut! Under Ninglu's terrifying devouring speed, Chu Yu immediately spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. Her entire face turned from blood red to pale white. Found it. After devouring for a few seconds, Ninglu found the middle part of the myriad free transformations technique in Chu Yu's memory. Ninglu didn't hesitate. He devoured Chu Yu's memory while passing the middle part of the myriad free transformations technique to Ningyu. 10 seconds later, all the information about the myriad free transformations technique in Chu Yu's memory was completely devoured by Ninglu. What? There's more in the five-fingered cauldron. Oh no. After devouring the memory about the myriad free transformations technique, Ninglu continued to devour, wanting to understand other things. However, just as Ninglu was about to continue devouring, his expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly retreated. Rumble. When Ninglu retreated to Ningyu's side, Chu Yu's doppelganger suddenly exploded. The terrifying shockwave sent Ningyu and Ninglu flying dozens of feet away. They crashed heavily into a towering tree. Crack! The huge tree, which was as thick as a person's waist, was broken on the spot. Fut! Fut! Ningyu and Ninglu both spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? After the explosion, Ningyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked in a low voice, "What else is in the five-fingered cauldron?" Ninglu did not immediately answer Ningyu's question. Instead, he tried hard to recall, then wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "I didn't find out the specifics. I only saw in Chu Yu's blurry memory that there was something else in the five-fingered cauldron. It should be related to the five-fingered immortal." Related to the five-fingered immortal? Related to the five-fingered immortal? Ningyu's expression was solemn. In fact, He always felt that it was a bit unrealistic to seize control of the five-fingered immortal cauldron so easily. After all, the five-fingered immortal was a sky immortal, and he was also a saint-level alchemist. It was impossible for someone of this level to do anything without planning. Do I have to abandon the five-fingered immortal cauldron? Seeing that Ningyu was deep in thought, Ninglu said, the five-fingered immortal cauldron is an alchemy cauldron on the immortal ranking list. It is a saint-level Dharma treasure. It would be a pity to abandon it. I definitely can't abandon it. Ningyu shook his head, indicating that he could not abandon the five-fingered immortal cauldron. Right now, the only saint-level Dharma treasure he had was the red demon sword. However, the red demon sword and the five-fingered immortal cauldron were countless times weaker. It could be said that if the red demon sword clashed head-on with the five-fingered immortal cauldron, the red demon sword would definitely lose. Yuzuan Pagoda. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly took out the Yuzuan Pagoda. Although Ningyu had not paid much attention to the Yuzuan Pagoda, it was undeniably the most mysterious Dharma treasure he had. Before the battle in the Moling Mountains, the Yuzuan Pagoda did not belong to him, but to the mysterious expert inside. When the mysterious expert left, he gave him 3 drops of true dragon blood and told him to take good care of the golden-haired girl. He even said that the golden-haired girl had a terrifying background. In other words, the Yuzuan Pagoda was very likely the mysterious expert's Dharma treasure. Even though Ningyu had advanced to the mid-stage human immortal stage, he could not determine the mysterious expert's true cultivation. Throw the five-fingered immortal cauldron into the Yuzuan Pagoda. Chapter 1931. Whoosh. The moment Ningyu's voice fell, the human demon and the rest rushed out of the cauldron in a flash. After emerging from the cauldron, the human devil looked at Ningyu and asked, "What happened?" While he was inside the cauldron, the human demon had already devoured Chu Feng's primordial spirit. After devouring Chu Feng's primordial spirit, the human demon had not only recovered to his peak state, but his combat prowess had also increased qualitatively. Previously, the human demon could only fight against mid-earth immortal experts. But now, the human demon's aura had faintly reached the late-earth immortal stage. In other words, with the human demon's current strength, he wouldn't even need to fear late-earth immortal expert. The five-fingered immortal might have left something behind in the cauldron. Ningyu's expression was solemn as he explained, "Although I'm in control of the cauldron, I have a feeling that everything was under the five-fingered immortal's control." Left something behind? The human demon's expression turned solemn after hearing Ningyu's explanation. The five-fingered immortal was a celestial immortal, and any celestial immortal had unfathomable strength. Moreover, the human demon was also a celestial immortal back in the higher planes, so he was very familiar with the methods of a celestial immortal. "What do you plan to do?" the human demon asked. "Why don't I destroy the cauldron?" The human demon was a ruthless person. The cauldron on the immortal ranking was a treasure that every pill master dreamed of owning. But when it came to human devil, he destroyed it without any hesitation. "I plan to throw the cauldron into the Tower of Yuzu." Ningyu flicked his wrist and took out the Tower of Yuzu. "Are you sure you want to put the cauldron in the Tower of Yuzu?" The human demon frowned as he looked at the Tower of Yuzu in Ningyu's hand. To be honest, he had seriously studied the Tower of Yuzu some time ago. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't determine the true level of the Tower of Yuzu. It had to be said that placing the five-finger pill cauldron into the Tower of the Ascension of Yu without knowing which was higher was an extremely risky move. "This is the only thing I can do." Ningyu sighed and opened the Yuezuan Pagoda, wanting to throw the five-finger cauldron inside. Wait. However, before Ningyu could throw the cauldron into the Ascension Pagoda, he heard a low voice. Ningyu was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then his mouth opened wide in surprise. "Little Cheline." Whoosh. Without a doubt, the one who spoke was none other than the little Cheline that had entered the Tower of Yu a long time ago. The little Cheline's figure flickered and appeared from the Tower of Yuzuan. Looking at the five-fingered pill furnace in Ningyu's hand, the little Cheline said in a deep voice, "I know what's inside the five-fingered pill furnace." Do you know what's inside the five-finger cauldron? Ningyu's expression changed slightly as he asked in confusion. It was no wonder Ningyu had such an expression. The little Chelene had been in the Tower of Yuzu all this time and hadn't come out ever since it obtained the cauldron. In other words, it hadn't even seen the cauldron before. How could it know what was in it? However, Ningyu knew that the little Chelene wasn't one to speak without thinking. He looked at it, waiting to hear its explanation. The little Chelene didn't answer Ningyu directly. Instead, it looked at Wu Potian and the others. Ningyu understood and set up a soundproof barrier around them with a wave of his hand. Only him, Ninglu, the little Chelene, the human demon, the Dark Emperor, and the Red Devil were inside. As for Wu Potian and the others, they didn't have the right to hear these secrets. The little Chelene's gaze swept across the Dark Emperor and Ninglu before it said, "There's another pill in the cauldron. If I'm not wrong, it should be at the pinnacle of the sage tier." Gasp! Everyone inside the soundproof barrier gasped when they heard the little Chelene's explanation. Ningyu's mouth was slightly agape, his face full of shock. He had devoured the five-finger immortal pill before and knew how terrifying a sage tier pill was. However, the pill he devoured was probably only at the pinnacle of the monarch tier to the first grade of the sage tier. Now that the little Chelene said that there was another pill in the cauldron, it was very likely to be at the pinnacle of the sage tier. How could Ningyu not be surprised? A sage tier pill was enough to make human immortals and even earth immortals go crazy, let alone a pinnacle of the sage tier pill. If a pinnacle of the sage tier pill really appeared, even heaven immortals would be alarmed. I actually don't know about this. Someone told me. The shock of Ningyu and the others was clearly within the little Chelene's expectations. It took the cauldron from Ningyu and said, "You should be familiar with the person who told me that there's a pinnacle of the sage tier pill in the cauldron." "I'm familiar with him." Ningyu frowned slightly, already having a rough idea of what was going on. Swoosh. As expected, Ningyu's guess was right. In the next moment, a figure flew out of the Tower of Ascension and landed on the little Chelene's back. A golden-haired girl. The figure was none other than the golden-haired girl that the mysterious expert had asked Ningyu to ensure his safety before he left. The golden-haired girl seemed to be under some kind of control. Sitting on the little Chelene's back, she grabbed the cauldron with her right hand. Then, the golden-haired girl did something that left everyone dumbfounded. The golden-haired girl stared at the cauldron for 3 seconds, then opened her mouth and swallowed it. Crunch! The golden-haired girl chewed, and the cauldron made a crisp crunching sound in her mouth. Gulp! The sudden change was clearly out of everyone's expectations. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva and stared at the golden-haired girl. Among them, the little Chelene was the most nervous. It was highly focused. If the golden-haired girl made the slightest mistake, it would immediately come to her rescue. Burp! However, Ningyu and the others' worries were clearly unnecessary. About 3 minutes later, the golden-haired little girl swallowed the entire five-fingered pill furnace and burped. This, Ningyu and the human demon exchanged a glance and saw disbelief and confusion in each other's eyes. At this moment, a doubt rose in their hearts at the same time. What exactly is the golden-haired girl's identity? One should know that the cauldron was a cauldron on the immortal ranking of pill cauldrons. It was at least a saint-grade cauldron. However, such a saint-grade cauldron was easily swallowed by the golden-haired girl. There were many races in the world that possessed powerful devouring abilities, such as the sky-devouring dog, the sky-devouring python, the sky-devouring sparrow. However, Ningyu and the others had never heard of any human race with such a terrifying devouring ability. Swish! Just as Ningyu and the others were puzzled, the golden-haired girl suddenly opened her mouth and spat out a cold golden light. Chapter 1932. What the F***ck? Ningyu couldn't help but curse when he saw the golden glow hovering in front of him. The reason why Ningyu would swear was because the golden cold light was none other than a medicinal pill, a golden medicinal pill. Ningyu could sense a terrifying energy fluctuation coming from the golden pill. It was obvious that the golden pill was of a much higher grade than the five-finger divine pill. "Thank you for taking care of me all this time." Take this 5-finger divine pill as your reward. The golden-haired girl lifted her right hand and pointed at the golden pill in front of Ningyu. I've erased the spiritual imprint that the 5-finger immortal left in the 5-finger divine pill. You can devour it without worry. As soon as she said the word devour, the golden-haired girl stomped on the ground and dashed into the distance at a terrifying speed. Ningyu hadn't expected the golden-haired girl to leave so suddenly. Ningyu remembered clearly that before the mysterious powerhouse had left, he had repeatedly reminded him to ensure the golden-haired girl's safety. Now that the golden-haired girl had left, what should he do if the mysterious powerhouse came looking for him? You can't leave. At this thought, Ningyu couldn't care less anymore. He shouted, "What will happen to me if you leave? If Hikun comes looking for you, tell him that I, Shu Ying, left on my own accord." The golden-haired girl replied without turning her head. Shu Ying. Ningyu was slightly stunned. He was clearly confused. He seemed to remember that the golden-haired girl wasn't called Shu Ying. Ningyu, I have to leave too. Just as Ningyu was feeling confused, the little Kailin's voice rang in his ears. You have to leave too? Ningyu regained his composure instantly. He looked at the little Kailin and said, I can tell that Shu Ying is very powerful. I can rest assured if she leaves alone, but you, Ningyu did not continue, but Ningyu believed that little Kailin would understand. After all, little Chilin's current cultivation was not even at the human immortal realm. Before the plane barrier had loosened, the little Kailin's cultivation might have been able to do as it pleased in the immortal spirit realm. However, the plane barrier had already been greatly weakened. Sages could be said to be everywhere in the immortal spirit realm, and human immortals were as numerous as dogs. With the cultivation of the little Chilin saint, it would probably be difficult for it to move an inch. If it were me, I wouldn't be so stupid as to leave, but I'm not alone. The little Kailin smiled at Ningyu before leaping up and flying off into the distance. Shu Ying is waiting for me over there. Buzz. As the little Kailin's figure flickered, a buzzing sound was suddenly emitted from the distant space. Then, Ningyu saw Void Abundance reveal a shadow. I hope everyone will be safe and sound the next time we meet. Ningyu stared in the direction little Chilin and Void Abundance had disappeared in and murmured. If I'm not wrong, this pill should be a pinnacle sage-grade pill. Although Ninglu was shocked by Shu Ying and little Chilin's departure, what really shocked him was the golden pill floating in front of Ningyu. Since Ningyu could tell the grade of the pill, he could naturally tell as well. It is indeed a pinnacle sage-grade pill. Before Ningyu could reply, the human demon nodded and said, the 5-finger sage pill can give early-stage sky immortals a high chance of breaking through to the mid-stage sky immortal realm. This pill must have been prepared by the 5 fingers immortal to break through to the mid-stage sky immortal realm. From the 5-finger saint pill, the human demon felt a pure and terrifying energy ripple. At this moment, the human demon couldn't help but suspect Shu Ying's identity. Even though he was a sky immortal in a high-level plane, he couldn't determine Shu Ying's true identity. She had directly swallowed the 5 fingers sage pill cauldron and erased the 5 fingers immortal's soul imprint in the 5-finger sage pill. This wasn't something that just anyone could pull off. In fact, a place had already appeared in the human demon's mind. The central godly dynasty. High-level planes had many territories, some of which were so remote that they only had one sky immortal. The central godly dynasty, however, was different. It ruled over thousands of territories and had as many sky immortals as dogs. There were even many experts who had surpassed the sky immortal realm. Taking a deep breath, the human demon temporarily suppressed his doubts. He looked at the 5-finger sage pill and said, Ningyu, with your mid-stage sky immortal cultivation, if you devour the 5-finger sage pill, you will definitely break through to the earth immortal realm. It's that terrifying? Ningyu exclaimed. He knew that he had a high chance of breaking through to the earth immortal realm after devouring the 5-finger sage pill, but he hadn't expected it to be 100% sure. It's more than terrifying. A 5-finger sage pill can give early-stage sky immortals a high chance of breaking through to the mid-stage sky immortal realm. What do you think? I can't devour the 5-finger sage pill now. Ningyu's face darkened, then he shook his head. I've just reached the mid-stage sky immortal realm. I'm still suppressing the heaven immortal tribulation. If I rush into the earth immortal realm, I might not be able to withstand 2 heaven tribulations in a row. You're right. The human demon nodded. The heaven immortal tribulation might not be that difficult for Ningyu now. After all, Ningyu's soul force and body were far stronger than an early-stage sky immortal realm martial artist. How about this? I'll split the 5-finger sage pill into 6 portions. Ningyu thought about it. 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for Ninglu and Hong Mo, 1 for the Dark Emperor. As for the 6th portion, Ningyu frowned. Even though Lu Enai's cultivation speed was fast, she was still only a heavenly supreme. There was still a long way to go before she could reach the Saint Realm. Even if he gave the 6th portion to Lu Wei wouldn't be able to devour it. On the path of cultivation, more haste, less speed. Ningyu didn't want to spoil Lu Wei. After thinking about it, Ningyu said solemnly, I've decided to give the 6th portion to Zhao Hang. Actually, giving the 6th portion to Zhao Hang was something that Ningyu had thought about deeply. If not for Zhao Hang's help at Wu Heng Cave, Ningyu definitely wouldn't have been able to leave. Ningyu was a vengeful person. He had promised to help Zhao Hang find the source energy, but so much time had passed and he still hadn't fulfilled his promise. Thus, he wanted to give the 6th portion to Zhao Hang as a form of repayment. As for Yi Jiansong, Meng Chang'an, and the others, Ningyu wanted to help them charge for human immortal realm. Shio. Ningyu flicked his wrist, and in an instant, a cold light swept out from his sleeve, splitting the 5-finger saint pill in front of him into 6 parts. Swish, 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 swish. Of the 6 5-finger holy elixirs, 1 was given to the human devil, 1 to Ninglu, 1 to the red devil, and 1 to the Dark Emperor. Chapter 1933. Outside the soundproof barrier. Zhao Hang, Wu Potian, and the others stared at the 5-finger sacred pill. Although Ningyu had used the soundproof barrier to isolate their conversation, the power of the 5-finger sacred pill could not be hidden from Zhao Hang and the rest. Actually, Zhao Hang and the rest had the same thought. Their relationship with Ningyu was not particularly close. Even if Ningyu divided the 5-finger sacred pill into a few portions, there was no way they would get one. Wu Potian and the rest were fine. After all, their cultivation was at the peak of the sage realm. Even without the 5-finger sacred pill, they could still break through to the human immortal realm. However, Zhao Hang was different. Zhao Hang was only at the intermediate sage realm. Although his combat power was terrifying enough to fight against a peak sage realm martial artist, what he needed now was not to break through to the human immortal realm, but the origin energy. In other words, something that could replace the origin energy. Although the 5-finger sacred pill in Ningyu's hand was not the origin energy, it had reached the peak of the sage realm. In a sense, it could already replace the origin energy. If only Ningyu could give me the last portion of the 5-finger sacred pill. Zhao Hang looked at Ningyu in the soundproof barrier and couldn't help but shake his head. How precious was the 5-finger sacred pill? Ask yourself honestly, if he obtained the 5-finger saint pill, would he give a portion to Ningyu? I hope that Ningyu will keep his promise and give me some of the origin energy during this trip to the 1000 Demon Ridge. Zhao Hang looked a little lonely. When he first met Ningyu, he was trying his best to help Ningyu. Who would have thought that in a short 2 months, Ningyu would break through to the intermediate human immortal realm and leave him in the dust? I wonder how much longer my sister can last. Zhao Hang stood on the spot and sighed softly as he gazed into the distance. Actually, there was something that Zhao Hang did not tell Ningyu. The reason why he wanted the source energy was to save his sister. A few days ago, he had secretly used a secret method to contact his sister and learned that his sister should be able to hold on for about half a month. Half a month's time wasn't short, but it wasn't long either. Because he couldn't be sure that he could obtain source energy within half a month, Zhao Hang told the people taking care of his little sister to bring her to the Myriad Demon Ridge. Which was also to say that Zhao Hang decided to fight to the death inside the Myriad Devil Ridge. Shio. However, just as Zhao Hang was thinking about this, a cold light suddenly flew out from the soundproof barrier and flew toward him at an extremely frightening speed. Ningyu's voice was heard along with the cold light. I'll leave this sacred pill for you. I hope you won't disappoint me and break through to the human immortal stage. Hua. Ningyu's voice caused Zhao Hang's expression to instantly change. His eyes widened in disbelief. Ningyu had given him the last portion of the five-fingered sacred pill? Even though he had imagined this happening before, he was still dumbfounded when it actually happened. It felt like a dream to him. That was the five-fingered sacred pill. What, you don't want it? Ningyu activated the soundproof barrier and slowly approached Zhao Hang. He grabbed the five-fingered sacred pill floating in front of Zhao Hang and said, "If you don't want it, I can give it to someone else." No, no, no. Zhao Hang reacted instantly and blurted out, "I want it, I really need the five-fingered sacred pill." Ningyu smiled when he saw Zhao Hang's reaction and said, "I'm not giving you the sixth portion of the five-fingered sacred pill for you to thank me. I want you to break through to the human immortal realm so that you can help me in the upcoming trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge." Zhao Hang bit his lips and wore a hesitant expression. Ningyu frowned slightly and asked, "Is there a problem?" Taking a deep breath, Zhao Hang explained, "I want to keep the five-fingered sacred pill and not consume it for now." Ningyu was stunned. He clearly did not expect Zhao Hang to make such a decision. After all, anyone who saw the five-fingered sacred pill would find it hard to remain calm. Ninglu, the Dark Emperor, and the rest had already swallowed the five-fingered sacred pill into their stomachs and were currently sitting cross-legged on the ground to refine it. Even the Red Fiend and Human Fiend were busy. Among them, Human Fiend was using the medicinal power of the five-fingered sacred pill to heal the wounds left in his body from his battle with a Heaven Immortal. He was trying to unleash the battle power of a peak Earth Immortal. As for the Red Fiend, he took the five-fingered sacred pill and entered the Red Fiend sword. He was the sword spirit of the Red Fiend sword. Swallowing the five-fingered sacred pill inside the Red Fiend sword could ensure that it would not be wasted. Even if there was overflowing medicinal power, the Red Fiend sword could devour it. Now that Zhao Hang said that he would not consume the five-fingered sacred pill for now, how could Ningyu not be shocked? However, even though he was shocked, Ningyu did not ask any further. After all, he had already handed the five-fingered sacred pill to Zhao Hang. How he handled it was Zhao Hang's business. City Lord Yi, Chairman Meng. Ningyu did not look at Zhao Hang but turned to Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. He said, "Your cultivation is at the peak of the Sage Realm. Now that the plane barrier has loosened, you should be able to charge for human immortal now, right?" Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an did not hide anything and nodded. "To be honest, the two of us have already accumulated enough. We just do not have the confidence to withstand the human immortal tribulation." The human immortal tribulation is indeed terrifying. Since ancient times, many geniuses have been killed by the human immortal tribulation. Ningyu nodded in agreement. The loosening of the plane barrier caused the cultivation of many immortal spirit state natives to skyrocket. Many even chose to charge for human immortal directly. However, Ningyu knew that if he was not strong enough, he would only die if he tried to charge for human immortal tribulation. The two of you are slightly stronger than Chairman Meng and the rest. You should be able to withstand the human immortal tribulation. Ningyu looked at Wu Potian and Divine War Crane and asked, "We are indeed able to withstand the human immortal tribulation. However, the immortal spirit state is undergoing a drastic change. Even if we reach the early human immortal stage, it will not help." Wu Potian and Divine War Crane were more farsighted. Recently, all the enemies they faced were earthly immortal experts. Even if they reached the intermediate or advanced human immortal stage, it would not be of much help, let alone the early human immortal stage. "What do you think?" Ningyu asked. "We want to return to our respective regions to retrieve some things." Wu Potian and Divine War Crane looked at each other and said in unison. Both of them were leaders of their respective regions. They had many trump cards that they did not bring with them. Therefore, they wanted to make a trip back before the source energy in the Thousand Demons Ridge exploded completely. They wanted to prepare some life-saving measures. Everyone has their own ambitions. Chapter 1934. Ningyu naturally wouldn't treat Wu Potian and the divine crane the same way he treated Zhao Hang. After all, Zhao Hang had actively helped him in the Wu Heng cave while Wu Potian and the divine crane had helped him passively. At the plaza of the Pill Emperor city, Wu Potian and the battle god crane had helped him and stood on the same side as him. It was only after they had defeated Gong Yangqing. Therefore, Ningyu choosing to give them a promise was already extremely benevolent. We'll meet again. Wu Potian and the divine crane took the crystal ball from Ningyu and leaped into the void. After Wu Potian and the divine crane left, Ningyu's gaze shifted to Elder Tianji and Yun Mu. Elder Tianji and Yun Mu's group were probably the weakest at the scene. According to Ningyu's thoughts, it was best not to let them follow him on this trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge. With the plane barrier loosening, the Myriad Demon Ridge would definitely be a gathering place for all sorts of monsters. At that time, even a human immortal might not be able to establish a foothold there, let alone Elder Tianji and Yun Mu. We might have to go to the Myriad Demon Ridge later. What do you guys think? Ningyu looked at Elder Tianji and Yun Mu and asked directly. We won't go to the Myriad Demon Ridge. Elder Tianji knew that Ningyu was worried about their safety, so he said, we'll be staying in the Alchemy Emperor city for a period of time. Although Elder Tianji really wanted to go to the Myriad Demon Ridge to seek fortuitous encounters, he knew his own limits. His strongest point was his knowledge of divination. However, the plane barrier loosening this time led to the descent of the high-level Heaven's Secret Sect's experts. What happened not long ago was still vivid in Elder Tianji's mind and he would never forget it. If it wasn't for Ningyu's help, he might have been killed by the high-level Heaven's Secret Sect's people. And in this trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge, they would definitely encounter the high-level Heaven's Secret Sect's experts. Therefore, after careful consideration, Elder Tianji finally decided not to go to the Myriad Demon Ridge. Alright, I respect your decision. With a thought, Ningyu transmitted the divination art he had obtained from perfected withered domain and by Chang to the divination elder. This. The sudden influx of information in his mind caused the Elder of Heavenly Secrets to gape in shock. He was a native of the immortal spirit realm, and the divination art he had obtained in the past wasn't the real one, but an incomplete one. Now, the divination art that Ningyu had imparted to him was the genuine divination art, the true divination art. Most importantly, not only had Ningyu taught him the divination art, but he had also given him a divination stone. Although the Heaven Fate Stone in Ningyu's hand could no longer be used to increase his cultivation, it could still be used for fortune-telling. Words cannot express my gratitude. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets knew that the divination art and Heaven Fate Stone that Ningyu had given him were priceless treasures. He cupped his fists and said to Ningyu, I will remember this favor. After saying that, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets pulled Yun Mu's hand and flew towards the Pill Emperor city. Seeing how highly the Elder of Heavenly Secrets treated Yun Mu, Ningyu slightly furrowed his brows. He vaguely felt that something was amiss. He had been paying attention to Yun Mu all this time. Truth be told, Ningyu had always been suspicious about Yun Mu's identity. According to Yun Mu, she was the reincarnation of the 100 Flower Palace's ancestor. However, Ningyu was very suspicious. He felt that Yun Mu's identity wasn't simple. However, there was no point in thinking about this now. Ningyu reorganized his thoughts and turned to look at Ziyun. Regarding Ziyun, Ningyu was actually very conflicted. Ziyun's physique was very special, and it could be compared to Lu Wei. If he cultivated with Ziyun, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. I'm willing to follow you to the Myriad Demon Ridge. Seeing that Ningyu was looking at her, Ziyun didn't wait for Ningyu to speak before saying, in the celestial spirit region, I don't even have a single relative. When I'm with you, I feel very warm. Ningyu's face was full of black lines. He didn't think that Ziyun would have this kind of thought. It was indeed out of his expectations. It should be known that Ziyun had followed them in the beginning because she was controlled by Ninglu. Now that Ziyun had changed her mind, how could Ningyu not be surprised? However, being surprised was just being surprised. Ningyu didn't dwell too much on this matter. He nodded and said, since you're willing to follow us, then follow us. However, I have to remind you that you can only stay in the storage ring. Without my permission, you definitely can't come out. Ziyun's cultivation was only at the intermediate stage of the Sage Realm. Ningyu didn't want to have to look after her in the Myriad Demon Ridge. Because this trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge was destined to be fraught with grim possibilities. Rumble. At this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the void. Oh no, all of you go into the storage ring. My lightning tribulation is coming. The sudden change caused Ningyu's expression to change drastically, and he hurriedly spoke. This rumbling sound wasn't something else, but a sign that Ningyu's lightning tribulation was about to descend. Ever since Ningyu had advanced to the intermediate stage of the human immortal stage, he had been trying his best to suppress the lightning tribulation. Who would have thought that the lightning tribulation would suddenly erupt? Whoosh 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 whoosh. Hearing Ningyu's words, coupled with the rumbling lightning in the void, the human demon and the others all went into the storage ring in a flash. However, what shocked Ningyu was that there were still 2 cultivators in front of him. These 2 cultivators were none other than Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. What are you staying behind for? Ningyu asked in surprise when he saw Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an staying behind. Something like the lightning tribulation could only be transcended by oneself. It was not advisable to ask for help from others. Otherwise, the power of the lightning tribulation would multiply. In other words, if Ningyu was going to transcend the tribulation, and Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an were inside, the power of the tribulation would increase by at least 4 times. We don't want to stay either. Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an were on the verge of tears. It wasn't that they wanted to stay, but they couldn't leave even if they wanted to. The 2 of them could sense that their tribulation of the human immortal realm was coming too. They would never have believed it if it was in the past. After all, they didn't do anything. Why would the tribulation befall them? If a peak sacred realm cultivator wanted to trigger the tribulation, they would need to devour a huge amount of energy and prepare a lot of things. Now that they had triggered the tribulation for no reason, how could they not be surprised? Damn it, you guys are hiding behind me. Ningyu cursed in his heart when he saw the tribulation clouds above Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. He shielded them behind him and said in a deep voice, "I'll block the lightning tribulation for you." Ningyu was well aware of that. With Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong's strength, it would be more difficult for them to block the tribulation clouds, let alone transcending the tribulation completely. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.